like to call this March 6, 2013 meeting of the Hampton School Board to order. Ms. Bowers, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Harper?
Here.
Ms. Henry?
Here.
Mr. Kilgore?
Here.
Mr. Pearson?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Mugler?
Here. Let the record show that all board members are in attendance, along with our school board attorney, Ms. Nancy Reeves, and our division superintendent, Dr. Linda Shiflett, our school board clerk, Ms. Carolyn Bowers. At this time, we will move into our invocation. Mr. Blunt, would you like to make some introductions?
Tonight, our invocation will be from Angel Maldonado, who's an 8th grader at Andrews Pre-K. Angel, would you lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir.
Everyone, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, my name is Angel Maldonado, and I am an 8th grader at Hunter B. Andrews Pre-K through 8 school. Dr. Worthen has been my principal since I was at Wythe Elementary, so she has really seen me grow up. I will be going to Hampton High next year, and since I doubt she will be transferring there, this is our last year at the same school. I want to take this opportunity to thank her for all she has done for me. I will always remember her as a kind and fun person who truly cares about her students. I picked this book to share because I think it puts into words how I feel about my elementary and middle school years. Congratulations. Today is your day. You're off to go great places. You're off and away. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what to do. And you are the guy who will decide where to go. I am ready to move to high school, but I will never forget my years at Wythe Elementary and Hunter B. Andrews. Thank you, Dr. Worthen, and all of my teachers.
You said you were going to Hampton. Do you have any plans when you get to high school?
I plan to do junior ROTC at Hampton.
ROTC? Anything else? Sports?
Sports, I plan to do varsity for Hampton. I think my 10th grade year. I already did JV recently for Hampton. So.
All right. When I visit Hampton, I want you to see you in charge of ROTC, Cadet CO.
Okay, he's going to be watching for you.
Yes, I will.
Some of you may recall Angel when we were doing the groundbreaking for Andrews.
Yes.
Angel was a 3rd grader.
Correct.
And he was one of the young people selected to be part of the groundbreaking ceremony. So now here you are all grown up. It's amazing. I wish I'd known. I would have brought the picture so that we could see.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. Do you have some folks with you from Andrews?
Yes, I do. I have my principal, Dr. Worthen, Miss Bellows, Miss Robinson-Taylor, and my writing teacher, Miss Fife. So.
And anyone from your family here?
No, my mother is working, so she couldn't make it today.
Okay. You drive yourself?
No. No, Dr. Worthen took care of that.
Oh, good. Okay. And I know she'll make sure you are delivered back home safely.
Let's hope so.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We move now to recognitions, and I call Ms. Ann Stevens-Cherry, our Executive Director of Public Relations and Marketing, and she will be assisted this evening by Mr. Dave Pearson from the board.
Thank you, Ms. Mugler, Mr. Kilgore, members of the board, superintendent, members of the executive team, parents, students, family, and friends. We would like to first of all call on a very special teacher in the Hampton School Division, Mishi Haslip from Langley Elementary School. Hi. A couple of years ago, the school board and the division leadership team decided we needed to pay special attention and appreciation to those educators in our school division who come up with creative ways to teach and creative ways for students to learn. Therefore, each month, the school board decided to give a special certificate and recognition to that teacher who has been nominated and selected for the Creative Teacher of the Month. So our Creative Instruction Award for this month, actually, she was supposed to be here last month, but Mr. Pearson will tell you what happened with that. But we wanted to make sure you guys know, and you had an opportunity to meet Ms. Mishi Haslip. She has been described as having a contagious enthusiasm for teaching and student learning. This first year pre-kindergarten teacher from Langley Elementary creatively uses art, music, manipulatives, and movement in order to make learning relevant for her students. Her most recent project involved her students taking a trip around the world, complete with passports and suitcases for each country they visited. Now, these are little ones, pre-K. At each visit, the students made art objects relevant to that specific country, such as menorahs in Israel, Kwanzaa mats in Africa, and poinsettias in Mexico. This type of creative instruction not only engages the school division's little ones, but also gets them very, very excited about learning. Let's have a round of applause for Mishi Haslip, our creative instructor for the month.
I'll give you a short version of why she was not here last month. She could not be here on this stage because she was out of the country. So I think that's a pretty legitimate reason for not being out of the country. So tonight, Hampton City Schools, the Creative Instruction Award will be presented to Mishi Haslip, teacher at Langley Elementary School, for providing a world-class experience for our youngest students as they embark through classroom travels on a trip around the world. I want to present this to you this time, and at the end of the year, she, along with other award winners, will be receiving a plaque. So this is your instruction award tonight, Ms. Haslip.
I'm sorry, this is so short for me. All right, tall. Hello, everyone. How could I be here without every one of you? You know, I have to say that Hampton City School is great. It is the best decision for me to teach here. And I had such a great time student teaching at Armstrong Elementary School in Mrs. Bukovaraki's class. I really enjoyed it. I learned so much. And when I came to Langley, Ms. Herman, my principal, and my assistant principal, Ms. Clark, has been so supportive of me, and they support all the creative pre-K activities that we're doing. And, you know, I have somebody who is really awesome, who is with me every day, Mrs. Schrader. And I love you, Mrs. Schrader. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Well, as an educator, there's a quote from the Baha'i Faith that really inspires me. I see myself in the classroom as a miner. So this is the quote that I would like to share with you. Regard man as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value. Education alone can cause it to reveal its treasures, and it inspires me, and I want to be the miner. I want to bring out all the gems in children. And since I got an award to be creative, I would like to share with you something really creative that Mrs. Schrader, my assistant, and I made up, so that our children learn the 3 properties of water. And we've tried every way to make them remember, you know, solid, liquid, and gas. They could not remember. And it just came to our mind, and we made up the song. So try not to laugh. Humma mama, humma mama, humma mama, gas. Moving water, moving water, moving water, liquid. Cold ice, cold ice, cold ice, solid. Humma mama, humma mama, humma mama, gas.
see why she got that award. Do you have any family here, Ms. Haslett? He's like family. Would you please stand and be recognized, husband?
He's not here.
Did you say he was here?
Late.
It was late.
Oh, he just left? Okay.
Late.
Oh, he's late. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to teach him something, right? But I can tell you, when she was out of the country, she was visiting her mother because it was her mother's birthday. So what a very, very sweet thing. Let's have another round of applause. I saw some of the teachers that she pointed to got very emotional in the audience, and I can understand why. I really can. That's great. For the next portion of our recognitions, I'd like to call on our coordinator of athletics, Beth Mayer.
Good evening. We have several awards tonight. We're going to start with Michaela Strutzman. Would you come on up, please, with your coach, Neil Eggleston? Come on up. Michaela is a Peninsula District cross-country champion, but I'm not quite sure about the leg right now. That's fantastic. She ran the meet in 19 minutes and 59 seconds and was the fastest in the whole district. So congratulations. The coach is Neil Eccleston.
Well, I've seen this young lady run, and if we're not already said it, we have to remember that she's a freshman. Very difficult for a ninth grader to win the Peninsula District Cross Country Championship. Very talented, and I know with mom shouting encouragement from the sidelines of senior Boo Williams Place and good coaching, you're going to continue to become an even better runner. Tonight, we present to you this Achievement Award from the Hampton City School Board. We congratulate you, Michaela Stutzman, Bethel High School Peninsula District Cross Country Champion, and next year, let's go for regionals. Congratulations.
I'm going to have them stay here. First, can we get the parents of Michaela to stand up, please, and be recognized? Congratulations. And also the Bethel administration that's here. Mr. Sanders. Thank you. Well, while we have them up here, I'd like to also call Jamie Thomas up. Jamie is also from Bethel. Come on up, Jamie. She's on the indoor track team. And again, her coach is Rick Hartong and Eddie Williams, but Neil Eggleston is taking their place to represent them. Jamie is the Eastern Region Girls Triple Jump Champion. Her longest jump, Jamie's longest jump in the Eastern Region tournament this year was 36 feet and 10 inches.
Wow. Wow.
Jamie placed third at the state meet with a personal best of 38 feet, 2 3/4 inches. Congratulations, Jamie.
Now, Jamie is a very active young lady at Bethel High School. She competes in 2 sports in the same season. So she runs from the basketball court to indoor track and back and forth, too. It's very difficult. And after talking to her parents, I think that if she had more time, she'd actually be a cheerleader at Bethel High School. So we present to you tonight this Achievement Award from the Hampton City School Board. We congratulate Jamie Thomas, Bethel High School Eastern Region Girls Triple Jump Champion. Congratulations.
Can we get Jamie's parents to stand up, please, and be recognized? Congratulations. And again, the administration from Bethel, Mr. Saunders, thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much. Our next award will be from Phoebus High School. It's our indoor girls track team. Come on up, please. While they make their way up, the girls are coached by Brian Roundtree and Vernita Brown. Mr. Roundtree isn't here tonight, but Miss Brown is. We're very lucky. The girls team won the Peninsula District Championship, and this is the 4th year in a row for them. Congratulations, ladies. We add another trophy to to stand. And Ms. Brown, thank you. Congratulations. Ms. Brown's going to share a couple of the individual accomplishments in the indoor track team.
Thank you. At the Peninsula District meet this year, we had several winners. Our 4x800 meter relay of girls took first place. That was Jackie Gilliam, Jada Bosley, Twanika Washington, and Katia Pierce. Carolyn Brown was first place in the 300 meter dash, first place in high jump. Jackie Gilliam was first place in the 1,000 meters. Our girls 4x400 meter relay took first place. And Kennedy King was first place in long jump. So we had several of our athletes to place first. If you placed first through 6, you advanced on to the regional meet. And once we got to regionals, we had some to drop off. I think we had about 10 athletes still competing at regionals. And if they finished first through 6, they advanced on to state. So Twanika Washington, Katia Pierce, Kennedy King, Carolyn Brown, Jackie Gilliam, Najee Benson, Rachel Jones, all advanced to states. And once we got to the state meet, as you know, throughout the state of Virginia Group AAA, it's very competitive. And we had several athletes that still finished within the top 6. Namely, our 4x200 meter relay took 6th place. Kennedy King had 6th place in long jump. Carolyn Brown had 7th place in high jump, 4th place in the 300, 2nd place in the 55, 6th place in the 4x200 meter relay. And so we are extremely proud. We're extremely proud of our girls' track program at Phoebus High School. None of this could be done without our parents and their support. I can honestly say that I don't recall getting any emails from any teachers during our indoor season for any of our athletes, any concerns academically or otherwise or behavior. Many of them are honor roll students, AP classes, honors classes. I didn't have the opportunity to go by guidance today, but I wanted to know what the GPA was for our girls team because many of them, I would say more than half of our squad, are in AP classes. And we do this with only 3 seniors on our team. Our team is mainly freshmen, sophomores. We have 2 juniors and 3 seniors, and the rest are freshmen and sophomores. So we certainly want to congratulate them for their efforts. On and off the track. And we couldn't do this without their parents. So any of their parents that are here tonight, please stand. We certainly want to say thank you for all of your support. And I do want to say this. We had some awesome team managers this year. Michaela Davis is not here, but one of our team managers that was at every meet is Miss Brittany Brown, and she is here tonight. And we just want to thank Brittany for a wonderful day. And last but certainly not least, we couldn't do what we do as coaches without the support of our administrators, our principal, Mr. William Beverly, our athletic director, Deanna Brown, our assistant principals, Shamika Pollard, Ruth Godwin, and Barbara Kimsey. Thank you.
As you can see, this is becoming quite a tradition. They have an outstanding track program at Phoebus High School, and I'm not sure whether Coach Roundtree will even use the word dynasty, but it is really becoming a tradition, and congratulations to all of you for the hard work. She's learned well. She's one of my former students. So tonight, I present the Achievement Award from the Hampton City School Board to the Phoebus High School Girls Indoor Track Team, Peninsula District Champions, with Coach Brian Roundtree and Coach Brown. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And girls, congratulations again.
One second, one quick second.
Oh, yes, sir.
When Miss Brown asked the parents to stand up, she was already standing herself because her daughter is over there. Raise your hand, Miss Brown.
Our next award also comes from Ireland Street. We have the Phoebus High School Fall Sportsmanship Award winners. So call your name, come on up, please. Sharina Bland, Ashley Skipper, Matt Mertz, Jada Bosley, Ashley Purnell, Alex Johnson, Drayvon Badger, Justin Wright, Doug Miller, Chris McCain, and Jasmine Sykes. We had 11 teams at Phoebus High School during the fall, and the ones that you see before you, or will see pretty soon, they were chosen by their peers as the best sportsmen on their team. And to me, that's the highest honor that we could possibly give to our kids. They have integrity, great character. I'm very proud of you. Congratulations. if I could get any of the coaches that are here that represent these young men and women. Can you please stand? Any coaches, please stand. Mr. Blunt. Thank you, Jeremy.
I was sitting there thinking about the Sportsmanship Award, and I was thinking that we take any team, and I'll just simply use a record like 10-1 or 11-0. How far will that winning record take you? We really don't know. But one thing we do know, that sportsmanship should be with you for the rest of your life. And so it'll carry through high school and life after high school, whether it's work, college, military, whatever. So sportsmanship is very big and it's very important. And I know your parents are very proud of you and your coaches are too, and we as well. I'm going to read the certificate and you're going to help me dispense these. The Sportsmanship Award will be presented to these students tonight from the Hampton City School Board, and they are recognizing the students, Phoebus High School, in their particular sport. These certificates are signed by our chairman, Martha Mugler, and our school superintendent, Dr. Linda Shiflett.
I just wanted to share something on these sportsmanship awards. Each time one of the students gets a sportsmanship award, and we're really committed to having good sportsmanship in Hampton City Schools, there's a quote on each of the certificates, and it's by Shaquille O'Neal. And it says, "Good sportsmanship is not a singular act, but a habit. You are what you do repeatedly." And let's have another round of applause for these wonderful examples of good sportsmanship.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Also, they would not be here without Mr. Beverly, the principal at Phoebus High School. Mr. Beverly, thank you for being here. Deanna Brown is the one that began the sportsmanship program over at Phoebus a year ago, and I'm sure you remember that they won the Wachovia Sportsmanship Award, Claudia Dotson Award from the state of Virginia. That's her baby, and that's what all this is about. So congratulations again. Now we'll go down to Warrior Country. I almost feel bad for the Newport News school system because the school board meetings have got to be boring. I mean, we have all the winners right here. I mean, our athletes are fantastic. So let's get the kickstand girls and boys swim team up here, please. Swim team is coached by Joey Stickle and Melissa Smith. They're making their way up here. Let me tell you that the boys were undefeated this year, and they won the Peninsula District Championship meet. Congratulations. And the girls were close behind. They were 8-1. They had a loss to Menchfield, but it was very, very, very close. And they also won the Peninsula District Championship. Congratulations, girls. The second year in a row that we've had diving back into the program with Hampton City Schools, and our divers, I want to mention, placed first, second, and fourth in the district meet after only 2 years of being in the program. So that's fantastic.
I appreciate you having us all here. We had a very good year. I couldn't be any more proud of this team. We had the largest turnout that we've ever had come out for the team, and we carried a pretty big squad, and it really helps to have a lot of depth when you go to the championship meet. And it really wasn't even, I hate to brag it, but it wasn't real close. I mean, we did very well. And I'd like to just mention that a few, some of our individual accomplishments at the district meet. We had individual winners, Cameron Powers in the 50 free, Christina Stouch in 1 meter diving, and Emily Lynn in the 100 backstroke. Emily also broke a team record this year in the 100 freestyle at the regional meet. We had 3 relay teams get first place at districts. The boys 200 free relay with Tucker Lynn, Zach Bakuvarakis, Zach Vandergrift, and Tyler Dakar. And the girls 200 free relay with Cameron Powers, Margaret Rhodes, Jordan Shackelford, and Emily Lynn. And the boys, I got to go straight. Let's see. Did I say the medley relay? It's the medley relay. Ryan Ramsey, Tucker Lynn, Zach Bakuvarakis, and Tyler Dakar. And our girls relay team also set a new team record this year. So, it was a very outstanding year. With all those accomplishments, none of it would be possible without a lot of help. First of all, my assistant, my sister, Melissa Smith. Of course, the dedication and the hard work that the team puts in. We probably swam more than we'd have in any past year with longer workouts, and not longer time-wise, but just fitting more distance into each workout, and I think that paid off. Our parents, it takes a lot of parent support to run a swim team. The meets are filled by volunteer positions, timers, officials, and I have lots of good support from my parents. And my parents also fixed 7 team dinners, and they're hosted by different parents on the team, and that really does a lot to pull the team together. The kick, I shouldn't fail to mention the Kickotan staff, Lee Martin and Raymond Haynes. I appreciate all y'all's support. They give me whatever I need. I just go to them, and I don't think they've ever told me no. So I'm going to keep asking. And also Beth Mayer and the school board staff here, I really appreciate the support that y'all give us. The school board here is a big reason why we got diving back into Hampton City Schools. We went for years without it, and like I said, we've made quite big improvements in our diving program just in 2 years. So I thank everybody. At regionals, we took 28 people to regionals this year. It's the most we've ever taken to regionals, and that was very good. And then we had Zach Bakuvarakis advance to the state meet, which you have to be in the top 6 at regionals to do that.
I asked Mr. Pearson if I could give out this award. My son swam on the team. He's not here, of course. But I just wanted to say something about the coaches. And yes, the team worked very hard, but it's been an honor to get to know these 2 people this year, because they are, if you looked up what a coach should be in the dictionary, you would find their names. They push their team, but they push them in a good way. And the only time I've ever heard anything loud come out of either of their mouths was when Joey's whistling. When someone's swimming and he's trying to get them to go faster, you can hear him whistling at a meet over every other noise, just, stroke per stroke per stroke. But it takes a lot of work to put a swim meet on. I don't think people realize it. I didn't realize it, and my kids have been swimming for years in our neighborhood pool. So I just wanted to thank y'all for representing our city really well, and thank you kids for doing a good job for your coaches and for Hampton City Schools. And I'd like to present you with these certificates. Hampton City School Board congratulates Kickotan High School girls swim team, Peninsula District champions, Coach Joey Stickle, signed by Martha Mugler, chairman of our school board, and Linda Shiflett, superintendent. And we also have one here for the boys. Thank you.
If the parents of these students could please stand and be recognized, we'd really like you to. The parents. Okay. Wonderful. What a great accomplishment. And I believe the principal, Mr. Raymond Haynes, is here as well. Mr. Haynes, please stand and be recognized. You got a lot to be happy about. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Pearson and Ms. Phillips, and this ends our recognitions.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens-Cherry. And congratulations again to all of our student athletes and our coaches and instructional staff on your recognitions tonight. And thank you all and your families for being with us. We move now to our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Phillips and seconded by Mr. Kilgore that we approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, would you call for the vote?
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to call Ms. Stevens-Cherry back up to the stage, our Executive Director of Public Relations and Marketing. She has a presentation to make.
Okay, thank you so much. I have an introduction, actually. I would like to ask Mr. Andrew William Foley IV to please stand. There he is there, okay, with the baby. We all know him as Andy Foley, and he has been selected to fill the position of Director of Community PEG Television, a position that was vacated by the untimely death of Scotty Bowers. Andy is a long-time member of the PEG TV staff. He began his television career with Hampton City Schools in 1996 and has worn many hats in the arena of television production, the latest being that of video animation specialist. Andy has worked with everyone from top administrators to the little ones in our schools to produce high-quality productions for Hampton City Schools. With the PEG TV station now also incorporating the news and events of the city of Hampton, Andy's leadership style, coupled with his quick study skills relative to new and advanced technologies, made him an excellent choice to take PEG TV to even greater heights. His primary focus for Hampton City Schools will be that of developing creative ways to visually market our wonderful students, our creative faculty, and our outstanding programs. Please join me in congratulating Andy Foley. And as you can see, Andy's wife is present. Please say, and little one. She was clapping for her dad. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Foley. We look forward to working with you, as you always make us look good up here. So we want to keep that up.
Remember to airbrush.
Congratulations. We move now to our superintendent and staff reports. I'll turn things over to Dr. Shiflett.
Thank you, Ms. Mugler. Our first report this evening is our proposed 2013-14 school calendar and the 2014-15 planning calendar. Dr. Leary?
Thank you, Dr. Shiflett, School Board. It is my annual pleasure to bring you the proposed 2013-15 calendars and to present to you the speakers for the evening who do such a wonderful job. And you know, tonight I can't think of a better weather event to be occurring on the night that we're going to be talking about calendars, because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people in the present audience and at home who are hoping for that snow line to dip a little lower than it did today. So at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the very capable hands that you have before you. Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Leary. Dr. Leary did her snow dance, as usual, because I said, what happens if it snows? She said, we're not having snow. So I said, okay. So I said to her tonight, well, you did the snow dance. She said, I told you it would work. So anyway, good evening, Mrs. Mugler, Dr. Shiflett. It is wonderful to be back again. I know you all are tired of us being here every year after year, but here we are. As I said, it's a lifetime commitment. So, Dr. Shiflett, Ms. Mugler, Mr. Kilgore, and board members. My name is Mary Johnson, and I'm a community representative on the calendar work team. I'm joined by Missy Powell-Riedel, a kindergarten teacher at Burbank Elementary School. Our purpose here tonight is to share with you the recommendations of the calendar work team. Our charge in developing the 2013-15 calendars was to recommend a two-year calendar that allows for continuous improvement of student achievement and supports professional development for employees.
to review feedback on the 13-15 proposed calendars, and to continue to support the regional school calendar agreement. Our calendar work team is a diverse group and is comprised of parents, teachers, support personnel, community members, and administrators. These are the members of our team, and many of them are present tonight. I'd like to ask them to stand, if they would, to be recognized for their hard work. They may all look familiar to you, as they also are a lifetime commitment to this committee. As we begin our task, we understand the importance of developing a calendar that met the state requirements of 140 clock hours per year for high school courses in order for students to receive credit for the class. The yearly requirement of 990 hours for elementary and middle school students, and of having a minimum of 180 school days. As part of the regional calendar initiative on the peninsula, we followed the common winter and spring break times that were agreed upon by the majority of the peninsula school divisions, as well as the regional professional development day designated at the end of the first semester. We also built in additional days in case schools need to be closed due to severe inclement weather, and included time for professional development, unencumbered teacher work time, and parent-teacher conferences. We also reviewed feedback on the proposed calendars and looked closely at suggestions that were provided. We are excited that the winter break in 2014 and 15 school year will be 2 full weeks. You can thank where Labor Day falls for that. We really had nothing to do with it, but we'll take the credit for that. This is possible because Labor Day is occurring on September 1st and school begins on September 2nd. And the winter holidays fall just right to allow for a 2-week winter break, so everybody's thrilled about that. Our recommended calendars will continue to support Hampton City School employees' families on the peninsula and those who have children in school divisions other than in Hampton. Our work team met faithfully beginning in January. We reviewed the regional calendar proposal as well as feedback we received from staff and parents. We used the ConnectEd message system to inform parents and staff that the draft calendar was available and to invite their feedback. We were able to reach about 87% of our parents and staff members through ConnectEd. The work team read and carefully considered all of the feedback we received on the calendars presented. Each year we receive questions about why we do not honor Veterans Day with a school holiday. While we do not recognize Veterans Day by closing schools for students and staff on Veterans Day, we do honor our veterans in a variety of ways at each of our schools. We take this opportunity to welcome veterans into our schools, to have lunch with our students, to attend programs honoring their dedicated service, etc. We also use this day to teach our students about the many contributions and sacrifices our veterans made and continue to make for us through their military service. Each year, school administrators and teachers receive information from Anna Dietz, Social Studies curriculum leader, on suggestions for lessons on Veterans Day. We fully embrace all that this special day has to offer. The recommended calendars we are going to show you tonight reflect the regional calendar initiative, the best thinking of our work team, and the input of our staff members, parents, and community members. Have I skipped you? Yes, I'm sorry, I went over. It's now Missy's turn. Did I miss a page?
We've been doing this too long.
Yeah.
We've gone through our 3rd presidential election. As is our current practice, this is a 2-year calendar, 1 year to be approved, and a 1-year draft or planning calendar. We continue to recommend early release days for elementary and middle school students to allow for protected teacher work time, as well as time for professional development for instructional assistants, school security officers, and other 180-day employees. Our recommended calendar also maintains a conference day in an effort to support parent-teacher communication. The hours will be flexible within each building and will accommodate working parent schedules. This day is an election day when our schools are closed to students and are used as polling places. Early release days are scheduled at the end of the 9 weeks to aid in closing out the 9 weeks, planning for the upcoming 9 weeks, and professional development for 180-day employees. We are also continuing to recommend that the end of the first semester include 1 full day of unencumbered teacher work time. Our recommended calendars maintain the current calendar of 194 teacher days and is comprised of 180 days for students, 7 teacher pre-service days, 2 school learning plan days, teacher work days, and the 3-day, 18-hour professional development requirement, which is outside of regular teacher contract hours. The recommended calendars also maintain the half-day exam schedule at the end of the first semester. Division-wide professional development will take place on one day during the pre-service week in August. This day will enable teachers and administrators, curriculum leaders, and other support personnel to participate in learning opportunities that will be designed to improve and enhance instruction, strategies, and positively impact student achievement. The Regional Professional Development Day at the end of the first semester is an agreed-upon date across the region, which will allow school divisions to collaborate on professional development for teachers such as special education, gifted, New Horizons, counselors, and etc. The end of the semester will be January 27th, which will give teachers ample time to complete report cards and for athletic directors to confirm athletic eligibility at the end of the first semester. In summary, the calendar work team recognizes the importance of continued professional growth for our staff. The recommended calendars maintain a day for division-wide professional development during the pre-service week in August. One day of the 2 days at the end of the first semester will remain designated for regional professional development and will also be assigned as a school or building level professional development for teachers who are not identified to participate in the regional professional development day. The unencumbered teacher work day will provide time for staff to regroup, plan, and prepare for the second semester, and in response to extremely positive feedback, we have maintained this day in our proposed calendars. Our work team feels these calendar recommendations accommodate the needs of many of our Hamptons families who are affected by the neighboring Peninsula District's calendars. There are 2 inclement weather days and 1 bank day built into the calendar. We are proposing that the 2 inclement weather days be removed from the end of the school year if they are not needed. The early close days will include all schools and all employees and will be 2 hours earlier than the regular dismissal time. These days are generally scheduled before a holiday or break and are adjusted each year based on how the holidays fall during the year. This year, the early close days we recommend are November 27th, December 20th, and May 23rd. As agreed upon by all of the Peninsula school divisions, spring break will continue to be the first full week of April, which will give us a consistent block of instructional time to review and prepare students for annual SOL assessments. We recommend approval of the 2013-14 school calendar and the 2014-15 planning calendar. As you are aware, the General Assembly has not yet approved a change in the Code of Virginia allowing school divisions to determine if they want to begin school prior to Labor Day. Therefore, these calendar proposals do not include a pre-Labor Day start for schools. The proposal before you The proposals before you will allow Hampton City Schools to meet the learning needs of our students while benefiting from a regional school calendar. At this time, we are prepared to answer any questions you may have of us. And thank you.
Thank you, ladies, very much for your report. And contrary to your opening statement, we will never grow tired of seeing your faces come before us. Questions from board members? See, you all have gotten to be so experienced at this that you've covered every possible base.
Are you sure you're not asleep?
Not a chance.
Okay.
I heard you say two years straight of 2-week Christmases.
Not 2 years, 1 year.
No, 1 year.
1 year.
Okay, well, I didn't hear. I heard the half of it.
14-15. In the planning calendar, 14-15 will be 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Ms. Logan?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but you know you have this appointment for life because before this group was assembled with Dr. Leary, people would run screaming from the room if they were considered for the calendar committee, and it was always such a fight, and you all have just figured it out. And I think you had to do an awful lot of work to get the region to get along with the regional calendar, too, and I think that's a very important piece of what you do. You're doing a great job. And You see, everybody has figured out, like Ms. Johnson is, if you ever ask a question, they put you on the committee.
And even when your children graduate, they just give you a new title.
That's right.
So you never leave.
Parent emeritus.
That's right. You never leave. You never leave.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members? Okay. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
We move on now. Dr. Shiflett?
Yes, the next report will be the presentation of the superintendent's recommended operating budget. Good evening, Ms. Mugler, Mr. Kilgore, members of the board, and our Hampton City Schools family. Tonight I stand before you to outline the superintendent's recommended budget for fiscal year 2013 through 14. This budget is set up to serve the 20,150 students that we're projecting for school year 13-14. We remain committed to protecting our core business of teaching and learning by aligning our resources to help our division achieve its goals. Remember last year when I stood before you, we had a budget challenge, a shortfall of about $2.32 million. You know, it's hard to get up here again and say that we're facing another challenge this year. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the economic environment that we're facing. And so much of this is because of the real estate revenues that are down in our city. Down $14 million since 2010, and that's equivalent to about 14 cents on our tax rate. Coupled with that, we've had significant changes in state and federal government revenue. The city has had its challenges, and you see what's up there about the city, but I really want to focus on what's happened to the schools over the last few years. Currently, the state provides about 64% of our budget, the locality 34%, and then federal miscellaneous revenue a little under 3%. Over the last 4 years, the state contribution to Hampton City Schools has decreased over $21 million. That is a significant amount of money. Added to that is the decrease in the local contribution of $3 million. So we're talking about $24 million, fully 12% of our operating budget, that's been eliminated over the last 4 years. And I think something that's important for all of us to understand is that Virginia ranks 38th in the nation for K-12 spending, and it ranks 31st in teacher salaries. In spite of our fiscal pressures, I want to tell you that I am so proud to be a member of the Hampton City Schools family and to be the person that's leading our teachers, our staff, to assist our over 20,600 students from 57 different countries. Tonight you saw the teacher from Langley receive a Creative Instruction Award. And I have to tell you, I've been in her classroom, and she's amazing. And Langley Elementary School is a school that really is like our little United Nations. It's an amazing place. And I really wish that I could take every community member on a tour of our schools so they could see the excellent things that are occurring. As you see up here, we have 1,500 teachers, but we have more national board certified teachers than anyone in the area. We have 115 national board certified teachers, 12 of them brand new this year, and 5 that actually recertified. This is significant because you have to go all the way up to Northern Virginia before you find another school division that has the number of national board certified teachers that we do. I'm not going to read through all the things that you see on this slide. It's important, though, to note that we have a number of choices for our families, to include things at the high school, like our International Baccalaureate program, our Armstrong School for the Arts, and our Health Sciences Academy at Bethel High School. We have 20 advanced placement courses and have had tremendous success in improving the performance of our students taking AP tests. Our results: 82% of Hampton's parents gave their child's school an A or a B. And this is significant because on the Phi Delta Kappan annual survey done by the Gallup poll, theirs is only at 74%. We had a 6% in our graduation rate in just 1 year. And our students are accepted into the best universities in the nation. The other thing that I think is important to note, that back in August of 2012, the city conducted a survey. And one of the questions on the survey was for the individuals to note one thing on which the city should focus. And the highest percentage on that survey was given to a focus on schools. So, are we an excellent investment? Yes, we are. As we look at school divisions that were identified as our cohort school divisions in the MGT study, the efficiency study that was conducted in 2009, you'll see that Hampton City Schools consistently ranks first or second. These cohort groups of schools, school divisions, are school divisions that are like Hampton City Schools in terms of being more urban, older, and similar demographics. So you'll see Roanoke, Hampton, Lynchburg, Portsmouth, Newport News, and Norfolk. And consistently, as you look at each one of these categories, Hampton City Schools is either first or second. Now, I don't want anyone to think that we only benchmark ourselves against divisions that are more like us. Because as we do our work, we are really benchmarking ourselves against those that we want, with whom we wish to compete, like Williamsburg, York County, and Poquoson. And I'm standing here in front of you tonight to tell you we're going to catch up with them. So here's our performance in academics and graduation rate. But here's another performance indicator that I think is critically important to everyone. We are the lowest in per pupil expenditures out of our cohort group. So you'll look at Roanoke City at $11,000 per child, Lynchburg at over $10,000, Newport News $10,500, Norfolk $10,500, Portsmouth $10,450, and Hampton at $9,992. Now, if you're someone who perhaps doesn't have children in school anymore, or has never had children in schools, why are schools important to you? Well, I submit to you that schools are a vital driver of economic development in a city. Hampton City Schools is also one of the largest employers in Hampton. Housing values are tightly tied to the quality of schools in a city. And the schools themselves provide so much more than education. It's opportunities for our young people to have social opportunities, to participate in clubs and activities, and to become engaged, because engaged students become engaged citizens. And high school graduates are more likely to be employed and be productive members of society. They are students who are engaged in school are less likely to become teen parents. Their children are more likely to become high school graduates. They're less likely to commit crime. They're more likely to they're less likely to use public services such as food stamps or housing assistance. They're more likely to vote and to become volunteers in the community. And really important is that they make more than $9,700 a year than someone who doesn't finish high school. And that's an important economic indicator for our community. These are the school goals, the division goals that are in place in our strategic plan for 2010 through 15. And there are specific initiatives aligned to each one of these goals. And these initiatives are supported by our people and by our operational budget. But I have to tell you, we do face challenges. Hiring and retaining quality educators in a competitive market Salaries and benefits are important. Maintaining adequate support systems, meeting the academic and social needs of all students, increasing student achievement, keeping up to date with technology hardware, software, applications, and support, maintaining facilities as our buildings age, and also critically important is making sure that all of our buildings are safe and secure for our staff and students. And finally, keeping our transportation fleet up to date. I mentioned earlier that again we face a challenge, and that challenge is a shortfall of $9.2 million. Now I want to help everyone understand that budgeting is a dynamic process up until the moment that we put the final approval and we have all of our final figures in. So we still have just a couple of outstanding expenditures that we're waiting to receive. But as of this moment, our deficit is $9.2 million. So very quickly, I just want to explain how we define this budget gap. So we begin with the original FY13 budget of a little over $191 million. We add back the 2 months of health insurance. As you'll recall, last year we gave a 2-month premium holiday. So that means we've got to add in 2 months to make the full 10 months for our next budget. The 2% salary increase, and at the time that we presented this to you in January, this included the VRS offset. So it was 1% salary, 1% VRS offset for about $2.6 million. A New Horizons increase of a little over $97,000. And then subtracting from that attrition, $1.8 million. And that's when we roll employees over and capture the salaries that we'll have for the following year. Transportation to Jones, Cooper, and the Bridgeport lease, as you recall last year, that was one-time money given to us from City Council. And then the 1% VRS shift to employees of $886,000. So our FY14 base budget is at $193,515,822. So to define the budget gap, we take our total projected revenue, and that's $188,582,932. And of that, we have a reduction in city revenue of about $1.7 million. And that's due to the assessed values of our property. And I have to tell you, at one point, that was much greater. Our original figures came in at about 6%, so it would have been over $4 million. Those figures have been adjusted, and so what we have now is about a 1.7 deficit in local funding. The total base expenditures of $193,515,822 that we saw from the previous slide, that defines our budget gap of $4.9 million. Now, what we have to do then is to add the additional expenditure pressures. So when we gave you the budget in January, we thought that we could take the 2% raise that was recommended by the governor, use 1% for the VRS offset, and 1% for the raise. We found out later we couldn't do that, so you'll see that the additional 1% raise over what we had originally proposed is back in there. The health insurance increase, and if you recall, originally we had thought that put an estimate in of about $2 million. It really came back to almost $2.3 million. We have an E-rate proposal out, and it's going to require new switches and handsets, about $250,000. VPSA, that is bond money that we get each year to support our technology infrastructure. Because we're getting additional money, we need to have additional local match funds, and that's what you'll see right here, $227,500. As we continued our budget building, we received some additional costs from New Horizons and for special education placements. a little over $131,000. Our self-insurance went up $76,960. OSHA chemical disposal of $20,000. And as you recall, several years ago, we purchased AEDs for all of our school buildings and our administrative building. It's now time to get new batteries and pads for $16,842. So our total budget gap is $9.2 million. I think it's always good to look at our revenue over time. And you'll notice back in FY09, we had over $215 million. And then you'll notice the very, very steep decline. The bump that we had right here, if you'll remember, that was because of the increase in the Virginia Retirement System contribution. It was a 6.04% increase. And so it increased our revenues because the state provides us funds to support SOQ positions. But on the other hand, it was an extreme pressure on our expenditures because it was a $6.74 million expenditure pressure, because that applies to all of our employees. Now, I have to let you know at this time, it's kind of a heads up, as we look ahead to the next biennium, we're going to see additional VRS pressure. We're going to see pressure from our Hampton employees' retirement system, and our local composite index will be recalculated. So the pressures that we're seeing from the retirement system will not go away. So when we're looking at closing this budget gap, it's going to require reductions to strategic focus areas. Under Maximize Every Child's Learning, these are the proposed cuts to close our budget shortfall. First of all, a reduction in our elementary art, music, resource teachers to standards of quality levels. And standards of quality require 5 positions per 1,000 in grades K through 5 for art, music, and PE. What we're proposing is to take the art and music teachers to SOQ levels, which will mean the reduction of 10 positions for savings over a little over $600,000. Additionally, looking at the reduction of elementary school counselors to SOQ levels. SOQ levels for counselors, it's 1 hour per day per 100 students, and a full-time counselor at 500 students. Currently, only 4 schools would get a full-time counselor: Langley, Machen, Aberdeen, and Forest. This proposal is the elimination of 8 positions for a total of $467,000. The next proposal is to share elementary assistant principals at selected schools. Now, SOQs do not call for assistant principals at almost any, well, at none of our elementary schools. SOQ standards call for a part-time assistant principal in elementary schools at 600 students and a full-time at 900. What we did, we looked at our highest performing elementary schools who had high performance over time, and also looked at combining these schools so that they would share assistant principals. These schools are Asbury, Phillips, Langley, Booker, Barron, Cooper, Armstrong, and Tucker Caps. This would mean the elimination of 4 positions for a savings of $298,000. Currently, we fund field trips at $2 per student at elementary and $3 per student at secondary. Our next proposal is to reduce the field trip funding by 50% for a savings of $25,681. The next proposal, again, goes back to standards of quality. Standards of quality look at student enrollment at grade levels, and at 4, 5, and 6, according to the standards, we can have a ratio of 25 to 1, with no class being greater than 35 students. And so we're looking at increasing class size at grades 4 and 5 to no more than 30. This would involve 3 teacher positions for savings of $179,459. Our next proposal is to eliminate middle school model of teams. This would eliminate 10 teaching positions for a savings of $586,920. Now, the teaming concept in middle school really helps to ease the transition from the very small elementary schools to the much larger middle schools. This proposal would eliminate that. It would be more like the junior high school model of staffing that we formerly had. And would essentially, you know, there are certain points in a child's transition from 6th grade to middle school and from 8th grade into high school that we'd like to provide smaller learning communities. And this would, in essence, take away that smaller learning community for young people. The next proposal is to eliminate the 8-period AB block schedule in high school to a 7-period daily schedule. Currently, we offer an 8 AB schedule, which means on one day students go to 4 classes, 90 minutes each. The next day they go to another set of 4 classes for 90 minutes each. Having 8 classes does allow for greater opportunities for acceleration and remediation. It allows for more elective choices for our young people. I really do believe that it has assisted us in improving our graduation rates. In the 8 AB model, teachers typically have about 75 students a day. If we do go to a 7-period day, teachers will typically have up to 150 students a day. However, with a 7-period day, class time, the amount of learning time will increase by about 10 hours. So they'll get 10 hours of additional instruction. They will be able to see teachers every day. And so for some classes, this is favorable, particularly in foreign language classes and mathematics classes. Also, if a child is absent, it is somewhat easier to catch up if they miss a day. Now, as you look at all these things, I need for everyone to understand that we wouldn't be here having this discussion if it were not for the budget shortfall. All of these things are cuts that are very difficult to make and very difficult choices. And I believe that as we look at everything in total that I'm putting forward to you, that there will be impact on teaching and there will be impact on learning. Under Attract, Develop, and Retain Exceptional Staff, one proposal is to reduce all supplements by 25% for a savings of $520,000. Supplements are given to coaches, so your swim team, your soccer team, football, basketball, track, also your cheerleading sponsors, your athletic directors. Sponsors are also given for extra duties that teachers take on to help young people in Model UN, the newspaper, the yearbook staff, the band directors, National Honor Society, Odyssey of the Mind, drama, and then also for certifications like our National Board certification, the Journeyman's card that some of our classified people get, and also as our employees work through the various apprenticeship levels in our maintenance department. So our proposal is that all of these are cut by 25%. The next proposal is to eliminate the elementary instructional leaders supplement for a savings of a little over $146,000. This supplement was previously eliminated from high school teachers a couple of years ago. The elementary instructional leader really serves as a liaison with central office the curriculum leaders and teacher specialists. And it's particularly helpful when we have changes in curriculum, pacing guide. We want to get teaching strategies out quickly, changes about SOL testing. These individuals kind of do a train-the-trainer model for us and assist us in getting information out very quickly to our teaching staff. Our next proposal is to reduce the kindergarten instructional assistants to part-time. This will reduce support for students in kindergarten, particularly when teachers are trying to do small group instruction. I don't know how many of you have recently been in a kindergarten, but it's a very lively place. And the need to have someone assisting the teacher, particularly during transition times, is, to me, very important. I think the biggest part about this one, though, is that these individuals are currently full-time, and so they receive the full benefit package. This proposal would eliminate the benefit package to our kindergarten instructional assistants. The next proposal is to restrict sick leave payout. Currently, when someone leaves Hampton City Schools, we give them the option of getting a payout on their unused sick leave of $30 a day. This proposal would take that option away so that if someone leaves Hampton City Schools, not retiring, but leaves Hampton City Schools, they would no longer be paid for their unused sick leave. The leave would remain on our books for 5 years in the event that the person does come back. Now, this doesn't mean if somebody wants to transfer the leave to another school division that they won't be able to do that. They will indeed still be able to do that. They can transfer up to 90 days. Our next and that's for a savings of $60,000. Our next proposal is to close Moton Early Childhood Center. The important thing to remember about this one is that it's only to close the building. The number of students served in our preschool program will continue to remain the same. The teachers there will be transferred along with the young people to schools scattered throughout our community. So the savings here result from the principal's salary, the custodians, the clerical, and a part-time nurse. And our last proposal under Attract, Develop, and Retain would be to reduce the 12-month contract from 249 days to 245. Now, this, in effect, is a 1.6% salary reduction. Now, 12-month people include such people as our electricians, mechanics, principals, some assistant principals, secretaries, administrators, curriculum leaders, our network support people, and plumbers. So it's a wide range of job titles. Maintain effective, efficient, and innovative support systems. Our first proposal is to eliminate cafeteria monitors. Currently, it's about 58 individuals for a savings of $250,000. As you recall, we did have this up for potential cut previously, and we restored it with education jobs funds. Currently, elementary and middle schools have cafeteria monitors. They will need to develop some kind of alternate plan to make sure that young people are supervised during lunchtime. Our next proposal is to replace 50% of our RNs with LPNs. Again, the standards of quality do call for a health care professional, but it doesn't call for a registered nurse. We could replace our registered nurses with licensed professional nurses. A concern with this is that we do have more medically fragile children in our school division and a number of young people with allergies. The savings here would be $238,028. The next two items are items that we have put on for discussion. The outsourcing of custodians really is an option that we are developing right now. There are several different options that we can look at, from all the way from bringing in a company to serve as a management function for our current custodial staff, which would actually cost us more money, all the way through having the whole function of custodial services outsourced, which could be a potential savings of a little over $1 million. The increase of the walk zone up to 1.5 miles is a savings of approximately $500,000. Currently, the non-transport zone for elementary school is half a mile, and for the secondary schools, it's 1 mile. I do have some concerns about safety and security with this particular proposal. Managing fiscal resources effectively and efficiently. We are projecting a decrease of approximately 550 students. And we always have a discussion about, well, what does that mean in terms of teaching staff and support staff and reductions that we can make. Individuals seem to think that you just take that 550 and divide it by 20 students, and that's how many teachers you can eliminate. It doesn't really quite work like that, because as you look at the 550 students, they are scattered throughout our 30-some buildings and within our buildings over different grade levels. But we are going to be able to adjust our budget by $1.7 million based on decreased student enrollment. So the grand total of all of the strategic areas and what you'll see in terms of proposed reductions is $10.4 million. So that does give us a little bit of flexibility to go in and look at how we can adjust some of these proposed reductions. You've seen this next graphic for a number of years, but I just wanted to make sure that once again we look at it and to remind you again that over the past 4 years, $24 million. And $24 million equated to the reduction in our employees of 376 FTEs. It means full-time equivalent positions. And the way that we have done that is to work with these bands and work toward the center, protecting the center as much as we possibly could. So as we look at making decisions about budgeting cuts and adjustments, we always look toward protecting the classroom teacher. And over the past few years, the reductions that you've seen in classroom teachers have been because of reductions in enrollment. But we have worked through the contracted band, the part-time and temporary, clerical, operational administration, and the majority of our cuts have come from the support staff. 27.9% of our support staff is no longer with us. Fully 1 in 4 are no longer with us. We have cut 12% of our workforce. And with the proposals that I've shown you tonight, that total goes to 18%. And here's how it works out. As you see, this shows you the position circle, all of the classifications, and the number of positions is our base in FY09, and then over the years, the number of cuts. And then finally, the percentage of cuts using FY09 as the base. And so as you look down through here, you'll see that we have indeed been successful in protecting classroom teachers. As you look at principals and school admin, the reductions that you see there are primarily due to the 6 schools that we closed. So I would submit to you that Hampton City Schools, as you look at our per pupil expenditures being the lowest of our cohort group, as you look at the position reductions that we've made, that we've been very fiscally responsible. We have looked at our internal operating budget, we have looked at our staffing, we have looked at our facilities, and we've done everything that we can to make sure that we are as efficient as possible. Earlier, I talked to you about the increase in our health insurance. Our employee health insurance and premiums will increase by an average of 22.6%. The calendar year deductibles will increase to $500 for an individual and $1,000 for a family for both our PPO and our HMO. And this is from our current zero deductible. There's no change in prescription drug copays or deductibles. The HMO office visit copay will increase to $25 or $50. Currently, it's a $20.40. The diagnostic lab charges will have a 20% copay. The PPO will have no change in copays for the specialist office visits and diagnostic or lab. The Hampton City Schools share of the total premium is 83%. These are the proposed insurance rates for the upcoming school year, and for a point of comparison, you will see the plan type, employee only, all the way through employee plus family. You'll see the PPO costs for this current year and what the PPO costs will be for next year. So as an example, for the employee only, it will go from $90.71 to $113.61. That's a $22.91 increase. That is a 16% increase of the total premium paid by the employee. As you look at the HMO, it will go from $49.85 to $65.40. That is a $15.55 increase. The rates here are shown monthly, and deductions are taken out for 10 months. Our total cost for insurance for Hampton City Schools is $21.9 million. Of that, $18 million is paid by Hampton City Schools as the employer, and $3.7 million is paid by the employee. The budget that I'm putting forward to you contains absolutely no funds for our replacement schedules. So for our technology replacement schedule and for our school bus replacement schedule, for the past several years, we've not been able to totally allocate the resources that we need. And so what you see here is what we need to really catch up. But we are not in a position right now to allocate any funds to these replacement schedules. You know, I often get questions about certain things that we can and cannot cut. And so it's important to realize, when I was talking earlier about the VRS offset, we have to do that. So over the next few years, all of our employees have to start paying their 5% of the Employee Virginia retirement cost. We have already phased in 1% of that. You saw earlier that we have included the next 1%. I would be delighted to be able to go on and get all of that done so that we would have it completely out of the way. Every year that we delay it actually makes the cost increase for us, because each 1% is going to be building on a larger base. 80% of our budget is tied to the mandated standards of quality. Standard 2 talks to the instructional, administrative, and support personnel. And 80% of our budget is allocated to those positions that are mandated by the standards of quality. So we have very little flexibility in some of the positions that we can eliminate. Programs that have state funding, when there's a revenue coming in to support the program, it really doesn't make sense to cut it. We've had a number of people say, well, why don't you eliminate summer school? Well, it really doesn't make any sense, because we get the revenue to support it in elementary and middle school, and in high school it's self-supporting. The same thing is for the class size mandates for pre-K through 3. We get the funding to support it. Additionally, we have requirements for special ed, gifted services, ESL, and other programs that we are mandated to do. So the question becomes, How do we invest in our future and in their future? And the choice is really ours. We are really fortunate to live in a community where we have individuals who do support our public education, but we truly are at a crossroads where we need to decide what we're going to do as a community. The city manager and I, Mary Bunting and I, have been going to various community forums to talk to individuals about what we're experiencing in both the city budget and the school budget. And so tonight I'm just going to very quickly talk to you about some options for all of us. And those options are, as a community, are we going to invest in our community, in our city, and in our school system? Are we going to protect what we have? Or are we going to make the decision to disinvest? Hampton has one of the lowest tax rates. As you'll see here, Portsmouth at a high of 127, Norfolk at 111, Newport News at 110, Chesapeake at $1.05, and Hampton at $1.04. Virginia Beach is lower at 95 cents, but the other thing that you have to keep in mind is the value of the housing. So it's not just the tax rate, it's also what your tax bill is, the amount that you're actually paying. As you look at Hampton's property rates, if you'll recall, we were at the high of 127. That was back in 2003. And as the property values continued to go up, they were adjusting the tax rates down. And so as we got to 2008, we were at $1.06. And then in 2009, it was adjusted to $1.04. And as it remained at that level through this past year. And so what has happened is that as the housing values continue to go up, the City Council very wisely said, let's lower the tax rate. However, the reverse hasn't been true. As the property values have been dropping, the tax rate has not been equalized. And so the question becomes, do we keep cutting or do we start rebuilding? The cities and schools have worked with less from taxpayers now for the last 4 years. The city and schools have each cut, for example, the city has cut 10% of its workforce, the school division 12%, and as you heard just a moment ago, if all of the proposed cuts go forward, we will have reduced 18% of our workforce. Again, I want to remind you, in city polling, residents have said that they don't want more cuts in services. And remember, they said they wanted to focus on improving schools. So one possible path is to invest. And what does investing mean? I need to explain to you, first of all, that 1 cent equals approximately $1 million in revenue. So this chart shows how we could invest for the future. You need to also remember that the schools and the city share in a funding formula. So the schools receive 61.83% of all taxes that come from residential real estate, personal property, and residential utility taxes. So you'll see, in order to make up for the 2014 real estate decline requires 3 cents. The mandatory increases for schools at 4 cents. Mandatory increased costs for city at 4 cents. The 2% raises to school employees, 3 cents. Now, I want to stop for just a moment because many of you will recall that in the governor's budget, he came out supporting a 2% raise for teachers, the SOQ-funded teachers. That was later amended by the General Assembly to also include the SOQ-supported support positions. So for the school division to give the 2% raise, which is approximately $2.6 million, we will be getting funds from the state of approximately $1.5 million. So the net cost to us is $1.1 million. Fund to average 2% merit raises for city employees. The first one since 2008, 2 cents. Invest in city growth and capital projects, 4 cents. Invest in school growth, 4 cents. So to invest in the city and in the school division, we are proposing a 24-cent. Now, it really can be anywhere from the protect level of about 16 cents to 24 cents. The last two, the 4 cents for the city growth and capital projects and the invest in school growth, would be given to projects that are one-time projects. So what does investing cost? As we look at the values of homes and apply a 24-cent tax increase, the annual increase for a $100,000 home is $188.80, but the monthly increase in that is about $1,573. So you'll see in $50,000 increments from $100,000 to $300,000 what that would mean for an individual homeowner. So if you look at typical homes in the neighborhoods in Hampton, and you look at what people paid on their tax bill in 2008 and compare it with what they paid this year, their tax bill, for example, in Riverdale, is approximately $462 less. Now, that's looking at an average home in the Riverdale area. And so you can see samples of various neighborhoods throughout Hampton. Another possible path for us to look at is to protect what we currently have. And in protecting what we currently have, the same chart, but you'll see the elimination of the last two items that were for investing in one-time projects. So the total tax increase would be at 16 cents. So what does 16 cents mean for a typical homeowner? For a $100,000 home, the annual increase is $112 or $9.33 a month. And then looking again at the neighborhood, at the Riverdale home, even at going with a 16-cent increase, it would increase the tax bill by $112, but it would still be less than what the resident was paying in 2008. The final path that can be decided upon is the path of disinvesting. And what this really means is that we want to keep our $1.04 tax rate. And what it means is that all the cuts that were previously mentioned would go into effect. Now, you've seen the school's potential cuts. I've tried to outline for you some of the things the challenges that we'll face with those potential cuts, what they may mean to our children and to our staff. But here's the other piece of this. The city is also proposing a lot of cuts. And these cuts are going to impact our schools, and they're going to impact the quality of life in Hampton. The city is facing a shortfall of $7.6 million. And what I've done, and I'm not going to go through all of these with you, but the ones that you see highlighted in red are ones that have a direct impact on Hampton City Schools. So the History Museum, the Bluebird Gap Farm, closing all the branch libraries, closing the Teen Center, eliminating parent education classes, eliminating a Healthy Start, eliminating youth engagement and youth partnership programs, eliminating our school crossing guards, reduce mowing of parks and school grounds and medians from once every 14 days to once per month. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine mowing my own home once a month. And what the school grounds will look at if we have to go to a once a month mowing. Decrease the CSB contribution for mental health. And the reason why that one is highlighted, because CSB is a very important partner to us in Hampton City Schools. They help support us in our YPEP program and also in our HERE attendance program. Eliminating the contribution to alternatives, eliminating the contribution to the food bank, eliminating the contribution to Star Achievers Academy. That's our Cooper Elementary School. Eliminating the contribution to the Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities. eliminating the contribution to the Downtown Hampton Child Development Center, one of our partners in making sure that our young people come to school ready to learn. The next steps that we'll be seeing, public comment opportunities on the proposed tax increase. We've already had 2 opportunities for people to weigh in. At Kickingham High School on February 26th, we had about 120 people there. And then at Bethel High School last Saturday, we had approximately 160. And during these opportunities, people are able to poll on all of these various proposed cuts. And they can indicate whether they are okay with the cut, they are absolutely not okay with the cut and don't support it, or they're really unsure. And thus far, we have polled over 300 people, and 90% of the people have polled to indicate that they would invest or protect. So what that means is that they would be willing to do anywhere from 16 cents to 24 cents to help protect or invest in our schools and city. There are some additional opportunities for people to provide input on Thursday, March 7th at Hampton High School, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and then on Saturday at the Rupert Sargent Building, Saturday, March 9th, in the first floor Veterans Conference Room, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Mrs. Bunting and I are also available to speak to any neighborhood groups or civic groups. Last evening, we spoke to the Northampton Civic League, and I'm happy to report that they were also in favor of investing or protecting the current level of the proposed tax increases. And in terms of the Hampton City Schools budget process, we'll have budget hearings on March 13th and 20th. The final approval of the budget is due by March 27th. The board will then submit its budget to City Council by April 1st, but it's not over yet. After that, the City Council, Mrs. Bunting, will present her city manager's proposed budget to City Council by April 15th with a public presentation on April 17th. They'll have their public input 6 p.m. in the council chambers on May 24th and May 8th. City Council will approve its budget by May 15th. And so I leave you with this. The choice is ours. We can invest, protect, or disinvest. And I'll take any questions that you may have at this point. And I thank you for your attention. I also wanted, before I do that, I want to thank the members of our community and members of our Hampton City Schools family who have provided suggestions to us, who have questioned us, and would also direct people to go to our website. And on the right-hand side, we have a whole budget section set up so that you can see information about our proposed budget, and there's a whole set of questions and answers that we have had submitted to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shiflett. Also, would like to commend your staff in working with you in preparing this. I know you all have spent a number of months in preparation for putting this budget forward, and so I'd like to also commend the finance staff, Susie Scott and Dr. Hellman and the whole crew. Questions or comments from board members? Mrs. Phillips?
I just wanted to commend y'all as well. I know how hard y'all work on this, and I guess what I'm going to say is more directed at the public, and that is to remember that this is a proposed budget, and that the school division is required by law to present a balanced budget. And at this point, it is up for us as the community to get to City Council to let them know that we are okay with increasing these taxes. I'm not in favor of any of these cuts, as is nobody, particularly not in favor of the high school schedule that you're looking at. But we as a community need to get out and let City Council know that they need to invest in our children because they're our future, and it's time we need to quit devaluing their education. So that's more directed at the community because I appreciate your hard work. And I appreciate Mary Bunting. She's done a great job of explaining their side of things as well. Thank you.
I feel very fortunate to live in a community where, as a leader of the school division, I have open and honest dialogue with the city manager. That doesn't exist in all communities, and so I very much value and cherish the fact that we have an opportunity to talk together about the challenges that we both face. And I think the fact that we're going out together explaining the challenges that we're each facing and giving a face to all the cuts that we're making and putting it into a community perspective rather than, this is the city side, this is the school side. I really think it helps people understand that, this is a community issue.
And there's one other thing that, and I had mentioned this to other board members and you, that I don't think people realize is that we have the funding formula, so we automatically get a percentage of every tax dollar that's collected. And the other thing is that the City Council has a clause where if our housing values go back up, they will decrease our taxes. We don't have to go in and ask for a tax cut. They do it automatically. I don't think people realize that. I did not. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Smith, did you have something?
Yeah. I also wanted to thank you, Dr. Shiflett, and your staff so much for all the hard work. I know you don't take pleasure in creating a list of cuts, and that you really don't want to cut a lot of those. And I'm really pleased to see that you put in that proposed budget amount of cuts that's higher than the actual budget gap, because as you said, it's dynamic, and that gap could change. Plus, you're providing the public with some options so that when we hear the feedback, that can help us prioritize on what to be putting back. I do want to say, though, that I'm really concerned about many of the proposed cuts because they're directly impacting the classroom at this point. And I want to take a moment just to share my thoughts on one specifically, and that's the change to the 7-period day. And the 7-period day has significant negative implications academically for our students. And of course, many of the cuts on this proposed budget do that. And however, for this one, I have other concerns. I'm truly apprehensive about the ability to successfully implement this plan by the fall. When changing this type of schedule for a school, with other school divisions, see, a lot of hearings, a lot of research planning, and I understand we're under a lot of pressure to come up with ideas, but with stakeholder input, they can shake out any possible concerns. And this change, after sitting in on a lot of the parent information meetings and the budget hearings, this change has a lot of impact other than academically. It has an effect on course offerings, homework load, lesson plans, missing the last block of classes for athletics, lockers, book bag weights, transportation to special programs during the day, and many other things that I heard. And to adequately address all those while also starting a new student information system this summer, it just seems extremely difficult for me to see a seamless introduction to this in the fall. And note also, we won't know about a tax increase till May. So we have to assume there's not going to be one. And for a change of this magnitude, we'd really need to start planning now for that to make sure we are prepared. And that would mean spending time and resources, which are already so scarce, to work on something that might not even happen. So I'm going to have a really difficult time approving this budget if that item's in there. And with that being said, I have 2 requests. And one for you, Dr. Shiflett, is I know a lot of the cuts total more than the gap, but not by enough to eliminate that from it. So I'd really like it if you could revisit the list of items that have been considered and see if anything else can be brought forward in lieu of that. And second, just to reiterate what Ms. Phillips said to the public, this Hampton City School staff, they have been cutting and cutting for several years in a row now. And every year it's getting deeper and deeper. And in addition to the efficiency changes that they've done to reduce spending, we've closed 6 schools. And we've reduced the support staff at the schools to, it's just a skeleton staff in the schools now. It's the bare minimum to get by. And it's not just the school budget, it's the city budget, like Dr. Shiflett said. We're looking at closing branch libraries. A lot of our kids don't have computers. Where are they going to do their homework and research? So many things on that list. So I really, really hope that everybody will make sure they attend one of the remaining joint city school budget hearings, and also complete the online polling that's going to be coming up. And then make sure you then follow up and go to City Council for the late April, early May meetings to make your voice known, so that they know how important the schools are to us. And we need everybody there. We need to show City Council that our schools are important to us, well, that our kids are important to us, and that we really need to invest in Hampton. So that's I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Anything further from board members? Okay, thank you so much. You have one more item for us tonight?
Yes. Dr. Hellman has the monthly operating budget.
Ms. Scott.
Ms. Scott's doing it tonight.
Since I'm here anyway, Dr. Hellman decided he could take the night off. I'm here to present to you tonight the results of operations as of January the 31st, 2013. Our year-to-date revenues are $101,454,068, and our year-to-date expenditures and encumbrances are $97,416,577. This is on track for this point in the year and comparable to the same point last year. It was based on a projected budget ADM of $20,700. As you know, our fall membership report came in lower than anticipated, and our revised March 31st, 2013 ADM is $20,411, which we are projecting will result in a revenue loss of approximately $1.45 million. We do expect to be able to cover this with attrition, and at this point we are on track to be able to do that. And otherwise, we're looking good for this point. Any questions?
Mrs. Henry?
Yeah, I think you just answered my question, but I think the public would probably like to hear it one more time.
Okay.
Because there's been so much talk about what sequestration does to educational funds and how that's going to impact us. And you did mention and this says we're under budget by over $1 million on the federal funding to date, and then that would continue. So far, we're okay, you think, for the rest of this year. Now, it'll have an impact on next year's budget as well. Probably won't show up in the budget Dr. Shiflett was talking about, because we have, again, for the public, we have more than one budget.
Correct.
We have the operating budget, which is our revenue that's sort of normal. And then we have a budget that's based on grants and federal funds that come in that are earmarked, and that's a different budget. And that one is the one that's going to be impacted probably in the future. But so far as we're operating through the rest of this year, we're going to be able to provide the same level of services to children, even in preschool, that we have up to this time.
Yes, ma'am. The sequestration, the only thing that it's anticipated to affect in this fiscal year is impact aid, and our impact aid funding is a very small part of our operating budget, so we expect to be able to absorb that if it actually does hit us. In terms of the federal budgets, the Fund 60 budgets, they are not expected to be hit until next year. We've heard varying levels of projected cuts, everything from a low of a little over 5% to 10. So we really don't have solid information on what that impact will be, but it won't be until next year. And we will be presenting next week the budgets for food services and grants and the Student Activity Athletic Fund. So hopefully we'll be able to put a little bit more light on that by next week. Although, as you know from the headlines in the paper every day, the sequestration is kind of an ongoing topic, and they're still trying to figure out exactly how it's going to play out. So we roll with the punches.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Anything further? Thank you so much, Ms. Scott.
Thank you.
We move now to the hearing of any delegations or presentation of any written communications or petitions. And just to remind folks, that we ask you that you limit your comments to 5 minutes in accordance with School Board Policy BDDH. Our first speaker tonight is Mr. David Dietrich.
Good evening, Mrs. Mugler, members of the board, Dr. Shiflett. My name is David Dietrich, 139 Wilderness Road. I'd like to discuss several issues this evening. One is school board accountability. One is school gun-free zones. One is community engagement. One is school choice. And one is school budgeting. Firstly, I ask the chairman why she continues to violate her own school board policy by refusing to be responsive to my questions in particular, whether during this meeting or by email or by phone. When will you start being accountable for your actions and my questions? Next, regarding school, what I call defenseless zones, I'd like to ask again, what is the school board's policy on protecting our children from dangerous people that may come onto the campus or onto the facilities? The safety of our children should be paramount. Moving on to community engagement. Why do you still refuse to establish a blue ribbon panel to look at problems in our school system? Why do you not want to publicly identify those problems? And why is the school board not apparently interested in real solutions? I think I've asked before for you to meet with concerned citizens, not during this meeting for discussions, in a separate meeting regularly, town hall format, you name it, to bring up problems and address them, school board members, by school board members, so we know what your position is on the various issues before us. As it stands, you sit there, you say nothing, we know nothing about how you feel about these issues, and we need to know, as the people, as the citizens who elect you, and with your responsibility over our children's education. Moving on to school choice. There are ways of addressing school choice that you have not yet taken. And I will ask again why it appears that you're satisfied with the status quo. Why are you not seemingly interested in improving and making our school system superlative in this area? I think you should be going to the state legislature to giving us greater flexibility and greater capability within our school system so that we can make decisions as a school system and as a community in the best interests of our children. I've said before, school or education is a civil rights issue, and I would like to see that is addressed in that way, that type of importance is placed on it. Finally, regarding school budget, I thought it was a very good presentation, Dr. Shiflett. But I'd like to ask, again, I asked this last month, who is auditing our school system budget? Who has done that for the last 3 years? And secondly, this comes down to the way the meetings are being held for public input to our budget. You're giving the public a choice that you are providing them rather than asking directly for their input on the justification line by line of your budget. And I have not yet heard what your justification for why you need particular services in that budget. I'm not as much interested in the cuts that you propose, but I'm interested in why you're spending the money the way you spend it in the first place. That to me is much more valuable because you're asking to take our money, a lot more of our money, for the purpose of maintaining a budget that I've never seen justified. And I think that's very important. We're talking cuts here, significant cuts, and by the way, I will say moving to a 7-period day for the students is an excellent idea. Great way to save money, much more effective way to teach. That's how I went to school, and I will highly recommend that. What's the stake of the school board in this whole issue? I think you should offer up your salaries as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. As far as my accountability to the citizens, I have to say I have taken time out of my personal schedule, sat down, spent 2 hours meeting with you, and I have corresponded quite a great deal with you over the email. So that's my response to you in regard to that. School board gun-free zones, we will continue to follow state law on that. And as far as community engagement and a blue ribbon committee is concerned, this school board is your blue ribbon committee, and we look at the issues that this school division faces, and that is our responsibility. And we do listen to our community as we have public comment. And as far as going to the state legislature regarding school choice, this school board has many members that go before the legislature and have discussions with them, and citizens such as yourself also have the opportunity to meet with the state legislature and make your positions known to them. And as far as how we are spending the money in this school division, our budget is posted on our website and is available to every single citizen inside and outside of this city, and I don't know how more transparent one could be. Our next speaker is Ms. Pam Kroon. Good evening.
Good evening. Chair Mugler, Vice Chair Kilgore, school board members, Dr. Shiflett, and audience. I'm Pam Kroon, Hampton Council PTA President, and I reside at 109 Greenwell Drive. As a PTA, our first and foremost mission is to be a voice for the children, and that means all children here in the city of Hampton. Hampton Council PTA continues to encourage residents to attend the remaining community budget forums and attend City Council budget meetings to let your voices be heard if you support to protect or invest in our school community. Residents should know that the Hampton Council PTA does not support the proposed school budget, but we are also very concerned with the alternative, deeper budget cuts. Our role in the budget process is to communicate parental thoughts and concerns with the school board and school administration, as well as educate our members and the community on the budget process and issues. The PTA represents all members and their concerns, even when they represent conflicting views, as is the case with this budget. With this in mind, when the PTA analyzes a proposed school budget, our mandate is to decide whether it is educationally sound. We must also consider the health and welfare of the children and whether the budget adequately addresses both the education and well-being of every student. Although we recognize that this is not a perfect budget and that cuts are proposed to student class scheduling, elementary art and music teachers, increased classroom sizes, and the like, we are also aware of the economic climate and the significant increase in taxes that need to ensue if the superintendent is to protect our students' academic success and not continue to affect the classroom. We know parents are angry, and we encourage the entire community to participate in the process and get involved. We also know that many people feel that we need to send a message. Unfortunately, a failed budget only sends a short-term message, and it is on the backs of our children and school community. A failed budget may change those things that we are upset about, but at what cost? The message is clear. Urge City Council to invest in our schools and approve the tax increase. Hampton Council PTA addressed this very issue at our January PTA Council meeting, and our membership overwhelmingly supported by vote to urge City Council to do just that, increase the tax rate. When evaluating the budget and whether we support a yes vote, we must also look at the consequences a no vote would bring to the children. In this case, a no vote would constitute that the district adopt a contingency budget. Under a contingent budget, considerable cuts to a vast number of programs and teachers would be required. Although we do not know specifics, we know that the district will be looking closely at those programs that Hampton parents and residents as a whole value. Anything that is not mandated by the Commonwealth of Virginia would have to be considered. The fact is, under a contingency budget, cuts will be made, significant cuts. It is quite possible that many of the items cut may take years before they are reinstated, if they are reinstated at all. We would also like to state that this budget process should not just be about getting the budget passed. On behalf of every member of Hampton PTA, we have an expectation that the school board will examine and analyze the quality of the programs that have been brought up by parents during these budget proceedings and have the same values, but understand the consequences of not adopting the proposed budget. Hampton Council PTA strongly advocates on behalf of the children for residents to speak in favor of investing in our school community, thereby maintaining our programs and ensuring our children have as many opportunities for success that we as a community can give them. Our schools are our largest shared asset. We ask the residents, please put their personal agendas aside and look at the bigger picture. If this budget fails, our children and our community will be left with the consequences. The message at the community budget forums is Hampton at the crossroads. Remember, our children did not bring us to these crossroads. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Groom. Our next speaker is Glenda Evans.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Evans, 114 Pine Creek Drive, and I come to you tonight in two roles, two capacities. One as the president of the Jones Magnet PTA, and also as a parent of both a middle schooler and a high schooler. As president of the PTA, I took a poll of my PTA membership, and they decided to vote against the cuts for the budget. Now, as a parent of a Hampton Middle School child, I understand that the budget is tight and that some cuts have to be made. However, I do not think that making the cuts will put our kids into jeopardy are the answer. With all of the new cuts being presented, there has been one thing that has been overshadowed, and that is the transportation for students. It has been said that Jones, which is the school that my son attends, as well as several other schools, will be losing its transportation. Also, one of the proposals in the budget cut is to extend the walk zone from 1 mile to 1.5. On the Hampton City School Transportation website, it says, our goal is to provide all eligible Hampton students with dependable and safe transportation, both to and from their homes, to the appointed destination of school, athletic competitions, after-school programs, and elected or division-required field trips. My question is, who determines what eligible means and where that determination criteria is posted? If the buses are removed from the choice schools and the walk zone is increased, you are putting the student's safety at a higher risk. Middle school students begin the school day at approximately 9 o'clock in the morning. Most working parents, and with today's budget, both parents in the home are usually working. Most working parents have to be at work between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 o'clock a.m. That means that the middle schooler, 6th graders that may be at the age of 11, all the way up to the 8th graders who could be around 13, 14, 15, would now be responsible from not just walking 1 block to the bus stop, but now a mile and a half to school, with their parents potentially being miles away at work. I believe this week we just had one child that was walking to school, to the bus stop, that was hit by a vehicle. Now, as the distance increases and the children have to cross roads such as Fox Hill, then those type of things may increase without the parents being anywhere around to help that child. I would also like to address removing the art and music at the elementary school level, as well as removing the A and B block. Elementary school is a time when children should be able to experience a variety of things, and start determining what path they would like to take in their future. Middle school and high school students have very structured programs that have to be followed in order to attend the college of their choice. Elementary school does not have as many federal requirements, I know. This is the time to let the children experiment with the things as well as learn their math, reading, and social studies. Taking out the art and music programs from the elementary school sends out the message that a career in the arts is less important than a career that may be centered around math or science. As I stated before, high school students have very rigid schedules and their classes mimic college courses a lot more than they did when I was in school. Taking away their extra elective will be taking away their time to relax and enjoy school just a little bit. We all need breaks from the stress of our jobs, and the extra elective is the way that the students are able to do so. They can relax and learn a valuable skill at the same time. In closing, I would like to challenge you and the city council to come up with alternate plans that could help the students as well as the cities. I'm very active with the PTA at several levels, and one thing that I've learned is the community is willing to step in and help as much as they can. Maybe you can partner up with some of the resourceful organizations we have, like the Teen Center. And in that respect, we have buses now that are going from Hampton City High Schools to the Teen Center after school. There may be a way that we can take 4 buses and go from the middle school to the Hampton Teen Center as well. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for making the decision to serve the city of Hampton.
Thank you very much. I know you had some specific questions there. We'll try and get back with you to address those particular ones that you... Thank you. Our last speaker is Ms. Gayleen Canoyton York.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Gayleen Canoyton York. I live at 10 Buckrow Avenue, and I want to publicly thank Dr. Shiflett and Ann Stevens Cherry for providing me with the information that I had asked for under the Freedom of Information Act under the 1996 study that was done on the 8 block. And the study was very good after I saw the article that was in the Daily Press that was printed in 1996, where the school board, Hampton City School Board, overwhelmingly approved of the 8 block schedule. I know that many parents and adults say that we support the 7 period because that's the way we grew up, but people need to understand, or citizens need to understand, that the students in this generation, all they know is the 8 block since 6th grades in many schools since 1999. So we need to bear that in mind. But I'm not a one-issue person, never been a one-issue person. In this article, it stated that we need to stop teaching courses and start teaching children. And that just brings me to my point about cutting the classroom and cutting teachers. There's a lot of concern in the community about looking at Hampton City Schools as a whole, not from the bottom up, from the top down. Are we sharing our resources and leadership with the city of Hampton? Are we maximizing all of our resources as well? The other thing is, and that was at an NAACP meeting that we had on Monday, that several members brought up concerns about where these cuts are coming from. You know, I've always said that the strong public school system is the economic engine to a viable city. And I applaud Dr. Shiflett to standing with Mary Bunting, our city manager, and being one force to enlighten citizens to know that it's important to raise taxes in our city. It is not only city council that have to approve it. It needs to have the Hampton City School Board to stand with them to talk about the importance and enforce the importance of investing in our public schools. Because without public schools, we won't have businesses coming into the city of Hampton, we won't have increased jobs, the housing market will not be on a rise, and our economy will go down as well. So I hope that everyone can understand that citizens are watching, and it's very important that we invest in our schools. I'm from Detroit. It's personal to me. We have one of the worst public school systems in the country. I know what it's like when you don't invest in a public school system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the last sheet I have with regard to speaking tonight. Is that everyone?
That's all I have.
We move on to other items for action, starting with item 6.01, minutes for the school board meeting of February 6, 2013. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of item 6.01.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Phillips and seconded by Mrs. Smith that we approve the minutes of the school board meeting of February 6, 2013. Is there any discussion? If not, Ms. Bowers, would you call the vote?
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6.02, certification of the closed session of February 6, 2013. Is there a motion?
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Henry and seconded by Mr. Kilgore that we certify the closed session of February 6, 2013. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, would you call for the vote?
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Abstain.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6.03, Virginia Department of Education Governor's Health Sciences Academy application. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pearson and seconded by Mrs. Henry that we approve the Virginia Department of Education Governor Health Sciences Academy application. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, would you call for the vote?
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 6.04, Personnel Matter 2013-01.
Madam Chair, I move to uphold the superintendent's recommendation in Personnel Matter 2013-01.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Phillips and seconded by Mrs. Smith that we uphold the superintendent's recommendation on Personnel Matter 2013-01. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, would you call for the vote?
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. We move now to item 6.05, deletion of school board policy IICCA, volunteer coaches.
Madam Chair, I would like to recommend and move approval of items 6.05 through 6.20.
Second.
If there are no discussions.
I'm sorry, but I found two things at the last minute that kind of need to be corrected in GE and GEA. It's just a typo kind of thing. And I'm sorry I didn't have time to call somebody about it earlier in the week.
So that would be 6.06
and 08.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, all the others I think are fine.
Okay. I know, Ms. Reeves, you had two.
Due to a request with respect to first read, there are two changes that need to be made to 6.15 and 6.17, which would be to add a cross-reference to policy JED, attendance policy, so it would be as amended.
Okay, so we could make those all as amended and do the rest? So which ones is?
Let's take up 6.06. Mrs. Henry, on policy GE, you had
Yes,
something.
it's toward the very end. Let me find it again. Oops, I've gotten in the wrong section. I do fine with my iPad until my fingers hit the wrong button. Toward all this part where we made a lot of changes, the next to the last paragraph says, all assistance provided by booster organizations to support a Hampton City Schools team or activities are required to follow this policy, parenthetical, e.g. choreographers. Well, the parenthetical doesn't refer to the policy. It ought to be all assistance provided by booster organizations, parenthetical, for example, choreographers, regardless of. It just, it's not an appropriate modifier there. So that's my only.
So your recommendation would be to
move that little parenthesis to after organizations, because that's what it refers to. All assistance provided by booster organizations, for example, choreographers, are required to follow this policy. When it follows after policy, it's just kind of a misplaced modifier.
So if I'm reading it correctly, you want it to read, all assistance provided by booster organizations, parenthetical, e.g. choreographers, end paren, to support a Hampton City Schools team or activity are required to follow this policy, regardless of whether the assistant is paid or unpaid.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion on policy GE? Okay, we'll move now to 6.08. That would be new school board policy GEA, volunteers in schools.
And this is just strictly a typo kind of thing. There's one of these things where it says administrators / designee, and you either say administrator / designee or administrator. It's in the last paragraph on page 1.
Understood.
Under the direction of the building administrator / designee, or administrators, designees, just needs to be consistent. I think it's better plural.
We generally make it singular, but that's...
Oh, okay. It doesn't matter, but it just needs to be the same.
Okay. Anything further on GEA from board members? And Mrs. Reeves, would you like to, do you need to further describe the changes regarding the cross-references on 6.15 and 6.17?
I can go ahead and simply say that because we are going to be discussing on first read the policy JED, which is called attendance policy, the request was that attendance policy have cross-references to policies JEA and JEG. So before you pass them on your action agenda, it seems most prudent to go ahead and add your cross-references to JED attendance policy at this time before you pass it. Otherwise, I'll have to take it through your process again.
Okay, now I'm confused.
JED.
I know the cross-reference is being added to the ones that are up for action or the ones that are up for first read?
The policy that is on first read, JED,
right,
which is attendance policy.
Deliberation.
I'm sorry, on deliberation. My mistake. The request was to add cross-references to that. And the cross-references that were wished to be added were policies JEA and JEG. Both of those are on your action agenda. The cross-references have to align. So you need to make a cross-reference on JEA and JEG back to JED, or else you won't be in alignment.
Okay.
Clear as mud.
Both of them cross-reference the other one.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think Mr. Kilgore, who figured this out, needs to just make that motion
Is there a motion?
to add the cross-reference to the ones on action.
Oh. I guess, do we make a motion to do that? I guess we do. Or, I mean,
Yeah.
did we make motions on 6.06 and 6.08?
Well, all right.
How about this?
No, but I'm
Okay.
just asking now, we're clear on what the changes are. Is there a
Yes.
motion with respect to policies?
How about we move items 6.05 through 6.20 with amendments to 6.06, 6.08, 6.15, and 6.17 as discussed?
Second. That's it. Excellent.
It's been moved by Mrs. Smith and seconded by Mrs. Henry that we approve items 6.05 through 6.20 with amendments to policies under 6.06, 6.08, 6.15, and 6.17 as discussed. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Bowers, would you call for the vote?
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Harper?
Aye.
Ms. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Kilgore?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Ms. Mugler?
Aye. Motion carries. We move now to deliberation. Item 7.01, revision of School Board Policy JED, attendance policy. And Dr. Woods, you'll be addressing us tonight on this policy.
Yes, good evening.
Hi.
Mr. Grimes is somewhat under the weather this evening, so I will be happy to answer any questions you have in regards to JED. We are proposing the change to align all of our policies and procedures with our HERE initiative. This policy, JED, is also modified to clarify grade requirements for exam exemption based on our revised grading system, IKA. And this policy also combines all attendance policies so that we now have a pre-K through 12 policy. So I'll be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Any questions from board members? Mr. Kilgore?
I had a couple. On page 2, under the absence verification, I see where we added wording that says that the parent or the guardian has to provide written or oral verification.
Correct, because we ask parents to call.
Okay.
But in addition to that, parents may provide a written documentation.
Okay, but when I get back to the section that talks about early dismissals, we then no longer give the option of oral. It's a must be accompanied with a written explanation or a written notification, I guess.
What page are you?
I'm actually back on page 7 now, where it talks about in this third paragraph down on that page, written notification from the parent or guardian must accompany all other tardies and or early dismissals and may not qualify as excused. So,
yes, we're asking parents with the early dismissal to send those in the morning.
Okay.
With the student, and if you're tardy, to do likewise.
So, I mean, I look at oral verification of an absence as being, that's going to be the policy that we're going to go to, where there is no requirement for a written note anymore.
Yes, we actually record in our student information system that the parent has phoned.
Okay.
When we make that contact with the parent, the oral communication.
Okay. The only other comment I had was that I noticed that the policy deletes the entire appeal process that used to be in place that the principals had to deal with in the last 10 days of the school year. is that replaced by anything, or is it just going completely away?
We are supplanting it with the procedures under here. So we're being far more preventive with this policy than we were with the other one, where simply you accrued 5 absences and you went into that status of having an incomplete at that point for high schools until the waiver was approved one way or the other. So this is aligning it all with here. So there will not be this issue with the attendance failures. You're not an automatic attendance failure once you get to 6, because we're doing the initiatives that are aligned with here.
Does here have a waiver? I mean, this
No, we
allowed
get more into the
for a
corrective action plans and those kinds of things.
Okay. Mr.
I'm good.
You're good. Comments or Mrs. Smith?
I'm just confused by one thing. So the HERE initiative doesn't follow the policies in here? I mean, we're changing the policy to fit the HERE initiative?
In other words, I think we're not running 2 separate policies. So the other policy was extremely punitive in some sense that, you know, there was this number that you reach the 6 and then you become the attendance failure. So now when you hit 6 unexcused absences, there are some other types of consequences that occur, but it's not assigned to your academic performance in school.
I understand the reasoning of that. That makes sense. And I just, it just confuses me because the HERE initiative isn't a school board policy. So I guess it seems backwards. It seems like there would have been a request to change the policy first and then put out the HERE initiative versus.
Well, actually, what we did was we amended many of the policies last year to be more consistent with code. And so now we're just going back and making sure that we've corrected all the last pieces that we need to do.
Okay.
And truly trying to be, instead of punitive, more supportive and getting involved with students and families to make sure that we get the supports in place so that we can affect some change in attendance and tardies and
much earlier.
Much earlier.
So you see there's an intervention day 1, you know, we're calling. Day 2. Day 3, we're doing some additional kinds of things. So it's far more preventive.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that background.
And yes, ma'am. And Ms. Mugler, when it goes to action, it will have a listing of cross-references. The JEA, compulsory attendance, ages, JEG, exclusions and exemptions from school attendance, and then students' rights and responsibilities. We don't reference that by we just reference that by the manual's name itself. So those 3 will be added.
Okay. Yes, Mrs. Henry.
In response to what Ms. Smith was saying, having sat through many, as a principal and assistant principal, many hearings with a student and a parent who were in the situation where the child was about to fail a semester because of one situation, it's the approach of getting involved in the child's situation early and preventing it and not making it an automatic academic failure is so much better, because we write policies that sound good, but they have unintended consequences. When the board a few years ago, a different board said 2 tardies are going to lead to a suspension because 2 tardies get you fired at the shipyard. We're getting you ready for the real world. Well, we all of a sudden had kids with 1 million suspensions. And we shoot ourselves in the foot with that kind of policy. If you have a policy that gives a child an automatic failure, and maybe they and their family are not functioning real well at the time of this incident that messed them up for a week or 2, they've got too many absences, they've already failed, we're in a crisis of some sort, and now you have automatic failure, and it's a terrible disincentive for the things we want, like graduation. So it's better to have policies that are proactive and positive than ones that have a negative kick in that doesn't really pay off in any way. Thanks, Ms. Woods.
Anything further on
JED.
Policy JED? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Woods. Our next item is 7.02, deletion of school board policy JEDA. Any comments or questions from board members on that? Okay, thank you. 7.03 is the proposed 2013-14 school calendar, and we had a presentation on that a little bit earlier and did have an opportunity for questions. Anything further from board members on the calendar? Okay. Very well. We'll move on to deliberation first read. Item 8.01, revision of school board policy EFC, vending machines. Dr. Hillman?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair, Mr. Kilgore, ladies and gentlemen of the board, it's a pleasure to be able to come to you tonight. We have for first read file EFC, which is addressing vending machines. Couple of things that I'd like to make note of. Number one, immediately following this, we have the ladies that will be coming forward to talk about the wellness policy on nutritional and physical activity. This policy is crafted to correspond with some of the tenets of their policy as well. We went through and deleted the old policy. We did a search for vending machine policies throughout both the Commonwealth as well as the country. Found several that we thought were very good and have incorporated the high points of those other policies into the policy that's being presented to you this evening. In addition, we have gone through and taken a look at the various cross-references and made sure that, you know, we're grounded in code as well as the Virginia administrative regulations. Basically, this policy would allow nutritious food or beverages to be vended during the school day as a result of the operation of school food services. Proceeds to go to school food services. After the school day, non-school food service vending machines are allowable and they can be turned on, and those proceeds are directed to go to the student activity funds so that they can be used to benefit the folks for which the sales were intended. That's a brief synopsis, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions at this point or next time when we have deliberation.
Very good. Any questions for clarification?
Dr. Hellman, we've always had to have anything off that could be considered in competition to the food service program. I think the only change in this policy is the timing of when other entities can click on, because it used to be after school lunches were over.
Yes, ma'am.
So this creates it. You don't really want kids to all run to the vending machine after lunchtime anyway, but
the thought process was that, you know, when you get into various schools, whether it's an elementary school, a middle school, or a high school, there could be different times with which in the lunch period ends, and it just seemed to be more realistic and more simplistic. Plus, it's more of an emphasis on overall wellness to just say during the school day. These will not be allowed.
Well, we've had, you know, since our state legislators like to spend 4 out of 5 of their legislative initiatives on education, we've had stuff for years about proposed about what you can and can't have in a vending machine in school, like kids will never find a candy bar if you take it out of school. Do we have directives still with regard to what's going to be with regard to nutrition and so forth? Or can you sell a candy bar in school? Is that, you know, that's not nutritious enough? Could be
the regulations, and I'll defer to Dr. Bryant as she comes up, and Ms. Lawrence. But what I've seen, they talk about basically nutritious food and beverages, and they talk about the nutritional value or content of the calories.
They want it to be a fiber bar and something instead of just all sugar.
Yes, ma'am. And some of the regulations that are cross-referenced here get into a lot of those details.
I'll have to ask Ms. Bryant, because we haven't inventoried what's in vending machines in a while, but I know kids will buy a bottle of water, and most teachers will let them carry a bottle of water to class with them, and that's not a bad thing. It gets them into a better habit than a soda anyway. So I know this was coming a while, and I know principals are saying I'm losing some money here, but if they still get them after school, it's not so bad.
Yes, and it's specifically designed to allow them for after school as well as when they have athletic events
Sure.
or things of that nature.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Hellman. We
Thank
move
you.
on to item 8.02, revision of School Board Policy JFCF, Wellness Policy on Nutritional and Physical Activity, and deletion of JFCF-R, Wellness Policy on Nutritional and Physical Activity Regulations. And we have a twosome here to present to us on this one. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Shiflett. It's our pleasure to come tonight to talk about the wellness policy, JFCF. Unfortunately, Pat Thompson, we would have been a 3 tonight, but she wasn't able to be here tonight. Just a couple things to give background on why this policy is coming forward. The School Health Advisory Board, over a year ago, started examining this policy, and we really started taking it real serious and looking at the depth of the policy. We used a tool called WellSat and went through the strengths of our old policy, and pretty much it showed it didn't have any strengths. That it used words like encourage, may, recommend, and there was no substance to the policy. So we decided to look at the Virginia School Board Association format and are making recommendations to use their format, but we've also added some other things. Also, with the changes, there's been required changes with the reauthorization of the child nutrition law that also has brought us to making the changes. Before I even do that, some things that have also drove us to make some strong changes is some of the data that's out there. A couple things, and you probably already know this, but I just want to point it out, that childhood obesity has more than doubled in children and tripled in adolescents in the past 30 years. This is from the CDC. Also, the percentage of children aged 6 to 11 years in the United States who were obese increased from 7% in 1980 to nearly 18% in 2010. And similarly, the percentages of adolescents ages 12 to 19 who were obese increased from 5 to 18% over the same period. I went back and looked at our, we use BMI and gather data here in Hampton, and we use it for surveillance purposes only. And we collected kindergarten, 3rd, 7th, and 10th. And from our 2010-11 school year and our 2011-12 school year, on average, looking at those 4 grades, 35% of our students are falling in the overweight to obese weight range, which I think is fairly significant. I also want to point out with the wellness policy, with the changes, in regards to looking at a full policy, we're not looking at just the obesity and the weight problem, but we also have a huge increase in our food allergies. Food allergies affect 1 in 25 school-age children now, and that averages out to almost 2 children per classroom. The CDC reports an 18% increase in food allergies among school-age kids from 1997 to 2007. I thought I'd bring before you tonight some of our own statistics in regards to food allergies. And this, we have to report to the state in October. We had, at that point in time, 1,134 students with reported food allergies, and only 195 that had produced their own EpiPens to treat them. Of course, we do have EpiPens in the school, but to treat their own known allergy was only 195. I need to let you know, this school year alone, we have already had 7 anaphylactic reactions that have required the use of an EpiPen. So I think those are pretty significant statistics. So that's why we're coming before the board with a much stricter, though there's still room, policy for the wellness. If you see at the very beginning, we have pretty much crossed out the old policy altogether. Not that some of it, a little bit of it, comes into this new policy, but we sort of started back from scratch and used the Virginia School Board Association policy and started adding from there.
along with using the Virginia's School Board Association policy, we had to really use what came out of the Reauthorization Child Nutrition Act, because certain things had to be put in this year that was not put in 5 years ago. The main thing that they required that we put in was something to do with health promotion or nutrition promotion. What are we doing? What do we plan to do to promote these things? Because before, the act just said nutrition education, nutrition guidelines, and it said physical education activities. So this time we put in what we were going to do in terms of, and remember these are goals, what we were going to do in terms of nutrition promotion. And since most of this does have has nutrition education in it, and nutrition promotion and nutrition guidelines, then I will briefly go over some of these. We have the introductory statement, which would be our policy detailed statement, and that's something we really did not put a lot of emphasis in before. The goals for nutrition, education, and promotion, we have things such as the health education curriculum standards and guidelines address both nutrition and physical activity. We will work in collaboration with the schools, school personnel to actually do nutrition education. Right now, the majority of our nutrition education has been done in the cafeteria through signage, through having classes in the kitchen and those kinds of things. And we do go into the classroom and do nutrition education. We actually do nutrition education with 4-year-olds using a puppet and having them to taste new foods, things that some of them have never seen before. We are always trying to increase our level of participation. This year we had to institute new nutritional guidelines, which have not been some of the most popular things to have done because it really, personally, from a personal point of view, interfered with nutritional quality or food quality, but that's something that we're working on, and next year, this time, we will see that quality improve. But we just had to get through those nutritional guidelines that were introduced this year from USDA. We are going to use a variety of methods to notify parents as to what's going on in nutrition and with our school meals. We are going to actually do a caloric balance guideline, or we're going to have it in all the schools, and it's going to be a document that shows caloric balance, and we're going to include physical education, and that means that what you put into the body, you have to put the same thing out if you want to maintain a healthy weight, or if you're overweight, you put in what you put in less and put out more. So we're going to hopefully do something on the television, our television channel, as well as on our website. And moving right along, we're going to, all our menus are going to be nutritionally analyzed on our website, and it will be available in each school for whoever needs, would need to know the nutritional information of all our menu items. Right now, we are publishing the carbohydrate count of all our nutritional items because we have a lot of diabetic students now, and the nurses need to know how many grams of carbohydrate they took in so that they can adjust the insulin that they need to give them each day. I'm going to see nutritional guidelines. These guidelines will apply to all foods and beverages sold to include competitive foods, which would be, we could look at a vending machine as a competitive food, but that's any food that's served in the school from 6 a.m. in the morning until the end of each respective building school day. We will not touch anything. This wellness policy doesn't touch anything that's outside of the school day. And that school day is defined by whatever the last class is in that building. We will assure
that students in subsidized programs will not be overtly identified, and this is very, very important. There are fines and jail time for people who overtly identify a child as either free, reduced, or paid. And I put down the reference for that. We're going to, and we have already started doing this. We've done this. We started this 5 years ago. Implement environmentally friendly practices such as the use of locally grown and seasonal foods, school gardens, and non-disposable tableware wherever it's appropriate. A while ago, and it was before my time, all dishwashers were taken out of secondary schools. And we were working on some things to try to get dishwashers that meet code back into those secondary schools so that we will not be using as many disposable products as we use now. And we will provide appealing and attractive meals to students. We will meet or exceed nutritional standards that have been established by the local, state, and federal statutes and regulations. We will share information about nutritional content of meals and with parents and students through the menu and our website. We will use non-food rewards for individual student academic performance and or good behavior unless specified as appropriate in an individual education program or 504 plan. We will discourage students from sharing foods and beverages. And we will require food items included in celebrations and recognitions be selected from an approved list. A list of the approved foods and beverages as well as detailed guidelines will be posted on the Food and Nutrition website and made available in each building. Okay.
The only thing to add is that we put the regulation or the code right by certain ones just to help spell it out. So when people say, well, is that a goal or is that a guideline, you know, or what is it? So that's why we have it. That's a little unique to some of our policies. But this one, I know parents or different people might ask, well, you know, where'd you get that from? And this kind of spells it out a little better. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's very thorough work you've done on this particular policy, and it is very important.
Well, I have to admit that we had a big committee, and it's the School Health Advisory Committee. They really, really helped us out a lot. And this committee is composed of administrators, teachers, student, and community leaders as well. So we cannot take all the credit for it. We mainly revised it and got it prepared for here, but they really, really helped a lot.
Great, great. Thank you, Dr. Bryant and Mrs. Lawrence. Mrs. Henry, you have a comment?
You always answer my question. I was just going to comment on the fact that when all this stuff became the hot topic, you were required to have such a committee. And we have one. It seemed at the time that each school was supposed to have one as well. Do we have any of these operating in individual schools, or are we just dealing with a citywide one and maybe access through PTA, or are we doing anything to help parents that way understand that there is this committee? Excuse me.
I will tell you that, yes, there is some schools that do still have committees. I tried very hard for about
it's very hard.
It is very hard. For like 4 years, I was only getting about 12 schools to participate. I will tell you, though, we have had numerous calls from principals begging us to get stricter because they are getting so much coming into their schools now that it's just getting very difficult.
I was the server of farm fresh cakes for honor rolls for a long time, and you know, so we have to have healthier cookies with juice. Huh?
Well, and see, that's the thing. You know, on this last, I do want to point this out because I know this is going to be, big discussion. Is under the guidelines piece where it talks about the approved list. I think people think we're up here to say, oh, no more candies, cookies ever. You know, like we're some food Nazis, and that is not the purpose of this. Really, Dr. Bryant is really going to come up with some great things to put on an approved list that parents can still purchase. And I already know she's identified at least a type of cupcake that Walmart does. I mean, there's going to be things out there. This is not going to be some list that we're taking everybody's fun away. So I just felt like I needed to say that.
I'm glad you credited your committee, because that is really an important part of this whole movement when it was underway. It's been the last 10 years, really, and then the whole point was to have an active committee like yours with interested people from the community. So, and there are parents who will come and speak to this group from time to time and say, I want to help, what can I do? And so that's something they can do to help. That's true. Be on that
Absolutely.
committee.
We value, we take everybody's vote and we really put it into it. We spent a whole year hashing this out. So it's been tough.
Thank you.
Anything further from board members? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We move now to item 8.03, revision of school board policy GC-BBC-R, overtime compensatory time guidelines. Mrs. Ruth?
Yes, thank you. With the overtime and compensatory guidelines, we are making some revisions to the time frame in which we pay unused overtime, not unused overtime, unused compensatory time. Sorry, my iPad is scrolling a little bit slowly. There is a typo that I noticed in the first bullet on page 2 in the blue wording where it says for all hours worked over 41 week, it should say in a week. So that will be changed when you see the policy next time. I mean, we did that. That is not anything new. We just did that for some clarification. And then also on page 2 in the last paragraph is the big change that we have made here. Currently, at least through June 2012, we have paid out unused compensatory time in the June payroll. This has created a lot of extra work for our payroll department. So in order to increase efficiencies within the payroll department and actually to minimize some of the compensatory and overtime that they earn, we will now be paying out unused compensatory time in the regular July payroll, just for efficiency purposes. And then on page 3, about middle of the page, we have deleted some language. When somebody leaves Hampton City Schools for any reason, they are automatically paid out for any unused compensatory time. It is always paid out at their current rate. At the time this policy was originally written, we were not paying out the compensatory time on an annual basis. So sometimes folks would have comp time that spread over 2 or 3 years that we were paying out when they left. That's why the language was in there. We no longer have that as a practice, so we're eliminating the language. And I believe that's it.
Okay, questions from board members for clarification? All right, we'll move on to item 8.04, revision of school board policy GCBDA, sick leave.
Yes, and actually the next 3 policies are all linked together. And Dr. Shiflett had mentioned some changes to the payout of sick leave during the budget presentation. So the next 3 policies, all of the changes, well, most of the changes are budget driven. We did also take the opportunity to clear up some language in other instances. And I'm sorry, right now I have a checkerboard pattern on my iPad. All right, the first changes are on page 2 under requesting sick leave. This is some of the language that we are just updating. We changed form to request because the majority of our employees use Kronos, which is an automated system to request leave rather than a paper form. So that's just to update that language. And we have also updated the language to match more of the process at the bottom of page 2, at the top of page 3, so that if an employee has a pre-planned absence, their department head or building administrator or the payroll department can call and request documentation. It's no longer a matter of the employee will provide the documentation up front. So we've updated that to match current practice. We have also added some language about Family Medical Leave Act, just to remind folks that we want to protect their rights, and that's why we're asking for leave documentation. So we've added that in. Now, for the big changes that are related to the budget recommendation, we are recommending that effective July 2nd, 2013, that only retirees and employees who are part of a reduction in force are eligible for sick leave payout. The reason for the July 2nd effective date rather than the July 1st effective date is because anyone who is retiring at the end of 2013 school year will actually have a July 1st effective date. And we do not want this change to affect anyone who is planning to retire at the end of the 2012-13 school year. So that's why the odd start date. Excuse me. There are no changes to the fact they can either be paid out for $30 a day or they can place the money in a tax-sheltered annuity. That remains the same. What will change is that, and this is also not a change. If you are eligible for Medicare, you are not eligible to participate in the retiree health care plan. That is not a change, but we've never had it written in policy, so we did add it here. But one of the other changes is that currently you can get a health care subsidy for up to 10 years. Effective July 2nd, it will be for 5 years. And this is to control some of our costs. That's the reason that we're putting all of these changes in here. Some of the other changes include currently, if I'm a retiree and I opt not to take the Hampton City Schools health insurance when I retire, I can come back in 2 or 3 years and say I would now like to get on the plan. And we are going to stop that option. If you want to participate in the Hampton City Schools retiree plan, we'd love to have you, but you have to join the plan immediately upon retirement. And should you opt out of the plan, we will not allow you back in. They currently allow employees to go back and forth off of the plan. So we're going to stop that. Again, these are for fiscal reasons to help control our costs. Moving on to payout of sick leave upon resignation, we will no longer be paying employees out for their sick leave when they resign. And this change, it is for fiscal reasons in order to save money in the budget, but it also brings our policy more in line with other area school systems. They will have the option to transfer the leave up to whatever the other school system will allow if they're going to another school system, and that's covered a little bit further in the policy. If they're not going to another school system, we will hold their leave as on the books for 5 years. If they return to Hampton City Schools within that 5-year time period as a full-time employee, we will put the leave back on the books for them. So if I were to resign in August and I have 50 hours of sick leave and then I come back in 2015, when I start as a full-time employee, I will have 50 hours of leave credited to my account. After the end of the 5 years, that sick leave will be forfeited. Any employee who is involuntarily terminated will not, or will automatically forfeit all leave. We will not hold it on the books for them. I think I already mentioned that for the reduction in force oh no, I didn't. For reduction in force, folks, they will be eligible for sick leave payout. That is effective July 1 of 2013. We just felt that that was, the appropriate thing to do. And they will also be eligible for transfer if they are, based on us not being able to employ them, they go to another school system, they will have that option as well. Again, an employee who is part of a reduction in force due to performance will forfeit all leave. The transfer of sick leave to another school division has not changed. We have always done this. We did clarify some of the language in terms of, currently we will only hold the leave for 90 days. So there's some clarification on the language that will hold it for 5 years. Again, employees who are involuntarily terminated or who don't give a 2-week notice, if you're terminated, we will not transfer leave. If you leave without providing us with a 2-week notice, we may not transfer your leave. And I believe those are all of the changes. Any questions?
Questions for clarification? Mrs. Henry?
In the part about the employee choice to take the subsidy for the participation in Hampton City Schools?
For retirees,
right.
Yes, ma'am.
It seems to me that, in effect, we've cut this participation down from 10 years to 5 years. Is there an actual limitation on an employee participating in the group if they pay all of their health costs themselves? In other words, if someone retired at 50 or 55 and they wish to participate in the group till they were 65, can they do that if they...
Absolutely. It's only the subsidy that is
Right.
being limited, and that's for fiscal purposes.
And it's still, even with the subsidy cut in half, an employee who would get $3,000 of benefit of cashing in gets $5,000 in benefit in participating with the subsidy. So now we are holding the money for that long, so I suppose it, not in today's money market, but there was a time that would sort of worked out even, but it's still a very good deal for employees.
It is.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that they can participate in the group even if they cash out their sick leave. You can participate in the group until you're Medicare age.
That is something that is explained in great detail whenever somebody comes in to meet with Ms. Ranger regarding retirement.
Any further questions for clarification from board members? We move to item 8.05, revision of school board policy GCPB, resignation of staff members.
Okay. Again, the changes in this policy relate to the changes in the payout of sick leave. And so the blue language that's in the middle of this policy reflects the changes that we have discussed in the sick leave policy.
Okay. Questions for clarification from board members? We move to item 8.06, revision of school board policy GCPC, employee retirement.
Okay. The changes here are due to two things. One is a change in the payout of sick leave, but there are also changes with the Virginia retirement system itself. And in that first paragraph, we took out Social Security just because, that's the law, and whether you're full-time, part-time, temporary, sub, you're covered by Social Security if you meet the Social Security guidelines. So we just went ahead and took that out as a part of the policy. But then moving to that second paragraph, we currently have two retirement plans. We have Plan 1 employees and Plan 2. And effective January 1st, 2014, there will be a third plan known as the hybrid plan. And we will be getting more information on that plan to you all as soon as we get greater clarification from VRS on all that it entails. But so that we didn't have to keep coming back to you every time VRS adds a new retirement plan, we just went ahead and put some generic language in there about eligibility is based on the VRS plan under which the employee was hired, and that the information is available on the VRS website. We did not include the VRS website just because we didn't want to have to update the plan should they choose to change their website address. And then under sick leave, we added some clarification that it's under VRS and or HERS, because not all of our employees are eligible for both. So, and those are our changes.
Okay. Any questions for clarification from board members? Okay. If not, we will move on to informational items. Thank you, Mrs. Ruth. Dr. Shiflett?
I do have a couple of things. Congratulations to the following teachers from Hampton City Schools who won awards at the Artists Who Teach show at the Charles H. Taylor Center. The show currently runs through April 7th, and Emily Marshall took second place. Scott Stannard got an Award of Merit. Tom Cutshaw, Award of Merit. Jeff Burns, honorable mention, and Emily Marshall, another honorable mention. It would be really great if we could find a time to go over there and view the amazing work of our teachers. Another thing, and I know you wanted me to do this, but I really want you to do it. Get up there. This is really kind of exciting, and Ann's been working with these individuals. Do you want the write-up, or do you? I think you do.
Recently, our public relations office has been talking to a Miss Gibbons, who is with CW TV Studios. That doesn't stand for Country Western. I asked her that. It actually is a combination of CBS and Warner Brothers. You're shaking your head, you know about it, okay.
The CW. Yep.
Yeah, and there's going to be a pilot done, and the association, the television series, is looking at trying to get that younger audience, like the Gossip Girl group, to watch more television. So they've been in touch with us about using one of our high schools. And the reason is because the pilot will be called Company Town. And it will be about a commanding officer who comes into Fort Monroe, but Fort Monroe actually is going to be a naval base. And this commanding officer will be a female. She has a mixed race child who attends high school. So the story will talk about the ups and downs of the commander, who I understand comes in kind of controversial, and the two best friends that the child meets along the way here. So they were looking at, since they were looking at Fort Monroe, they decided to take a hard look at Phoebus High School because it was so close to Fort Monroe. And then somebody suggested Hampton High, and then somebody suggested Kickertan. Well, according to Ms. Gibbons, they visited all three of those schools, and she said Phoebus looked like exactly what they wanted, and she wanted to let me know when they walked into Hampton High, the warmth that was there, she felt like they were home. So at that point, they were looking at Hampton High, and this is, Ms. Gibbons has done all the creative work for the movie Lincoln. She did the casting for, I still call her Scully, in X-Files with Mulder and Scully. And so she's done quite a bit, but she had to wait until her director came in, who came in a couple of nights ago, Taylor Hackford. And if that name rings a bell, it's because he directed such greats as An Officer and a Gentleman. He directed the movie Ray, Dolores Claiborne, my favorite, White Nights, because of Mikhail Baryshnikov. And he came in and he said, I want to take another look at Phoebus. So right now, it looks like it may be at Hampton High, and we were kind of shocked that he wanted to look at Phoebus because we found out his favorite color is red. So the interesting thing is that if the pilot is picked up and they have a very short window to shoot, they've got to start shooting spring break week. They don't have to build any sets. They're going to look for homes. For instance, a home where the commander would live. Understand one of our DLT members, Ann Bain, already had a knock on her door. And they're looking at some other homes in the area where the two students would stay, who are the students' best friends. They are bringing all their generators. You don't have to worry about everything. They're taking care of everything there. And they even are going to use this as a learning opportunity for some of our students, because they said they will be meeting with classes, because usually when you talk about Hollywood, everybody wants to be a star, but you've got people who can be location directors, creative directors, and that kind of thing. So, excuse me, they have to have it wrapped up by May. And they'll be working on weekends when it comes to the school, and then, of course, during the week they'll be shooting at Fort Monroe, the naval base. They've been working with the people in the Navy across the water. I understand they've talked to risk management. They've talked to the police for Hampton. They've talked to the fire, so they're crossing all their T's. And it could be an exciting time if that pilot would be picked up, because that means that people would be moving to Hampton, Virginia because of the show. It means that tourism would go this way. And, of course, the wonderful name recognition. So as soon as they decide, and it looks like Hampton right now, exactly which school they will be using, they will finalize the contract. Of course, we can't do anything until Nancy's eagle eyes have looked at it. She already looked at it, at a draft of it, and said, I don't care who they are, this isn't working. So we're going to make sure that we've got everything covered as far as Hampton City Schools is concerned. But, again, it can be an exciting opportunity for all of us. That's it.
Thank you, Ann.
Cool. Okay. Anything?
That's it.
Well, I don't know what could top that. But Javante Blunt, our student liaison, had attended Grad Nation last month. Do you want to give us a little
sure.
report on that?
Grad Nation Summit was put on by our friends at UTHAC and Alternatives. UTHAC presented a report to us a few months ago, if anyone remembers. But basically, the Grad Nation Summit was getting the community involved, because we talked about it's not just an issue for Hampton City Schools or Newport News City Schools or Norfolk Public Schools. It's an issue in the community for everyone. So there were different sessions that you can go to. I attended the role model, the parent role model one. And we talked about the roles of teachers, the roles of students, how teachers can just smile for students and make their day, how everyone can make their day. And I think Ms. Smith attended the school-based workshop.
Yeah, I did.
School-based
that
workshop.
was great. Yeah. It was really, it was a wonderful session. So I went to the one, you went to that session, I went to one where we talked openly and honestly about why students drop out, and it was interesting what the students had to say, so it was neat to hear that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Informational items from other board members? Anything further? Okay. Our next meeting of the Hampton City School Board will be on Wednesday, March 20th at 6:30 p.m. at Jones Magnet Middle School right here. And that will also serve as yes, I know. Our next regular meeting will be on March 20th at 6:30, and that will also serve as one of our public hearings on the proposed budget. We also will have budget hearings on March 13 and 27 at 6:30, also in Jones Magnet Middle School right here. And we move also on to a reminder about the city and school board community budget forums. One more tomorrow night, Thursday night, March 7 at Hampton High School. That'll be at 6:30, from 6:30 to 8:30. And again, on Saturday, March 9th, and that will be at the Rupert Sargent Building, downtown Hampton, and that will begin at 9 a.m. and run until 11. So we really would like to encourage citizens to come out and partake in the information that is imparted in those forums and to give us feedback and information from the community. So again, we've talked about it several times tonight, but really want to encourage citizens to come out and hear that information. And I believe that is it for tonight, unless someone else has something to come before this body. If not, this meeting is adjourned.